He's just a rookie with no rank. Yet he walks through an SS rank dungeon like he's strolling through a supermarket. Wearing his legendary flip-flops and a black backpack, people usually mistake him for a lowly porter. Who would have guessed he could take out a dungeon boss with a single punch? S-rank huntresses swoon over him, and even the president begs him to save the country. Little did they know, he used to be a nobody, a total loser drowning in debt, forced to risk his life just to pay off loan sharks. But to understand this, we have to look back at the previous life, in a world that was completely destroyed. Brutal monsters poured through spatial rifts, plunging humanity into misery. To survive, people had no choice but to stand up and fight back. I was no exception. I spent my entire life doing just that. Day after day, month after month, a year vanished in an endless loop of bloody battles. 10 decades went by in the blink of an eye. Now, with just a sword in my hand, I could slay any monster. Nothing in this world could scare me anymore. But right in front of me, a presence so overwhelming, the leader of the monsters, the Demon Lord, appeared, staring at me with cold eyes and whispering, "Give up. The world of the living is already gone." He looked at me with pure arrogance and continued, "What a waste of your talent. Become my blade." Looking at the one responsible for all this tragedy, I screamed in rage, "Don't mess with me!" I poured every ounce of my power into a desperate charge, swinging my sword for a final life-or-death battle against the Demon Lord. Sensing the surprise attack, the Demon Lord faltered in shock. He whipped around, teeth gritted in fury, seeing me charging from above with eyes blazing with the will to die. I swung my sword with all my might, delivering a critical blow. But he easily blocked it, mocking me coldly. "No matter how hard you try, to me, you're nothing more than a bug." The sound of clashing weapons rang out incessantly. The immense pressure crushed me, forcing me to my knees before I was sent flying. I quickly scrambled back to my feet, lunging at him again. But with just one hand, he easily pushed me back under that terrifying pressure. I collapsed, gasping for air. He slowly stepped forward, revealing a glowing blue crystal on his chest. I realized it instantly. That must be the source of his power. In a flash, I unleashed everything I had. A beam of light tore through his body as if ripping the sky apart. With the sound of shattering crystal, a massive shockwave exploded. His body crumbled, and he was finally finished. But the cost of victory was steep. My body was damaged beyond repair. Is this really the end? Cutting to the modern world. A young man with messy black hair, wearing a white t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, is walking aimlessly along. He heads straight for the Namsan B Gate, a C-rank dungeon that's been cordoned off with keep-out signs. The PA system keeps blaring announcements. "Please scan your hero ID. Civilians and non-heroes are forbidden from entering." Ignoring the warnings in the Jongsan district of Seoul, the young man casually approaches the security fence, suddenly leaps over the high iron wall, and lands on the other side. This unauthorized entry immediately triggers the security system. Red alarm lights start flashing, and a siren wails, "Warning, an unregistered hero has breached the gate." Ignoring the blaring sirens behind him, he walks through the portal and finds himself in the middle of a dense forest, sunlight filtering through the lush green trees. As he's wandering through the grass, a voice suddenly calls out from behind, "Hey, kid, are you lost?" The guy turns around to find a group of professional hunters approaching. Seeing his strange outfit, the t-shirt and flip-flops, the middle-aged hunter speaks up with concern. "I don't know what you're doing here, but we're heading out. Want to come with us?" Seeing how weird the protagonist looks, the orange-haired huntress in the group immediately whispers to her teammate, "Hey, look at what he's wearing." The bald hunter chimes in mockingly, "Right? I doesn't look like the hero at all." Even the middle-aged hunter looks uneasy. Well, porters usually dress casually, but this is... They keep eyeing his black backpack and flip-flops, guessing that he's just some client who got ditched in the dungeon by the system. Faced with their chatter, the protagonist just scratches his head, clarifying, "I get what you guys are saying, but I just got here. See? I was definitely left behind." Seeing that, the middle-aged hunter walks over. "I've seen people like you before. I get what you're thinking when you enter a gate, but binge-watching social media for more than 3 hours is basically suicide. Get certified as a hero first, pass the training and the tests. This is a C-rank gate. If you want to start, go find an F-rank gate." But the protagonist doesn't care for the lecture. He coldly cuts him off. "I get that you're trying to help, but I'm really not that grateful." That blunt remark leaves the group of hunters stunned for a few seconds. The bald hunter gets angry and prepares to fight. What is wrong with this lunatic? Don't stop me this time, boss. The middle-aged hunter has to intervene quickly. Calm down, everyone! Then he sighs, watching the protagonist's back as he walks away. Just forget it. If someone won't take good advice, they have to experience it for themselves to understand. These gates aren't like what you see on TV or the internet. Just then, a bloodthirsty roar echoes out. A monster! A giant ogre with gray skin and hideous fangs suddenly appears right next to the protagonist. It roars like a maniac and swings its massive stone hammer. It slams down toward his head, yet the protagonist remains completely calm. He skillfully sidesteps the 1,000-pound hammer strike with ease. The hammer hits the ground, creating violent shockwaves, but not a single blow touches his clothes. He closes his eyes for a second, feeling the familiar killing intent. The protagonist mutters, 15. Suddenly, his eyes flash with a powerful golden light. In a single instant, he punches it, and it's vaporized on the spot. The monster's massive corpse crashes to the ground. The grass turned a deep shade of crimson. Standing before the puddle of blood, the protagonist glanced at his hands, then muttered something cold and dismissive. He looked down at the short blade in front of him. That was the loot from taking down the orc. He proceeded to carve up the beast to retrieve a glowing red magic stone, a low-tier one, worth just enough for a cup of instant noodles. Finished, he tossed it into his backpack and headed out. He moved deeper into the woods and crouched down to search. Suddenly, Dojin's ears twitched as he caught the sound of guttural growls and heavy footsteps thudding against the earth. A massive pack of orcs with glowing red eyes burst into view, roaring madly as they charged at him. Facing the aggressive monsters, Dojin's expression remained icy. Quick as a flash, he dodged their wild swings and darted away. While on the move, Dojin hurled an ultra-powerful magic stone like a bullet, taking one of them down instantly. He tossed his backpack aside. Keep waiting, you walking noodle cups. I'm coming for the lot of you. While Dojin was busy inside the dungeon, the hunter party from earlier was still leisurely making their way through. The orange-haired huntress let out a soft sigh, clearly worried. What if that annoying guy actually died in there? Her teammate beside her heard this and teased, "Worried about him, are you?" Immediately, the middle-aged hunter chimed in to reassure them. If the kid was just an unauthorized intruder, the agents from the control center should be arriving any second. This was the Namsan Gate, a C-rank gate, so they would have dispatched high-level agents, at least B-rank or above. As long as he didn't go full suicide mode and throw himself at the monsters, he wouldn't die. Hearing that, the bald hunter chuckled and agreed, "You've got a point there." That brat, probably trembling in a corner somewhere, waiting for the agents to rescue him. But contrary to their confident predictions, the one shivering and drenched in cold sweat at this very moment was actually a massive orc monster. Before the beast could even register what was happening, Dojin lunged forward and delivered a devastating direct punch straight to its face. Just then, another orc from behind furiously swung a giant hammer down. But with sharp reflexes, Dojin dodged it in the nick of time, the monster's missed strike slamming hard into the ground. It kicked up a cloud of blinding dust. Realizing their target had vanished, the orc blinked around in confusion. Instantly, Dojin appeared from above. He delivered a crushing aerial kick straight onto its head. The sheer force shattered the creature's skull, and it collapsed beside its dead comrade in a pool of blood. Casually dragging his serrated short blade along the ground, Dojin glanced at his haul, his eyes flashing with a cold golden light. He muttered to himself, "That's 3 more magic stones." Dojin heaved his heavy backpack onto his shoulder and sighed in frustration. The loot this time was pitiful compared to his expectations. Walking around had given him a splitting headache. He'd only managed to scrounge up 12 low-tier and 16 mid-tier magic stones. Right then, a loud shout rang out from behind. "He's over there!" Dojin raised an eyebrow. He turned around to see a group of men in black suits and sunglasses rushing to surround him. The brown-haired agent parted his hair and stepped forward, announcing sternly. They were from the Gate Control Center and demanded to see Dojun's hero registration. He added that if he was an unregistered hero, he was required to follow them to the center immediately. Hearing the name Gate Control Center, Dojin repeated it, sounding completely unfamiliar with it. Even as the agent kept demanding his cooperation, Dojin only felt annoyed, as if trouble were knocking on his door. He let out a sigh. Seeing his non-compliant attitude, the brown-haired agent immediately ordered his team to bring out the handcuffs. A blonde agent stepped up, unlocking the cuffs while warning that they would use force if he resisted. And any physical injuries incurred would be entirely his own responsibility. But just as the cuffs were about to touch Dojin's wrists, he moved like lightning. He grabbed the blonde agent's wrist, squeezing so hard that the bone audibly cracked, causing the agent to cry out in pain while his eyes went wide with shock. Under the pressure of his overwhelming strength, Dojin coldly warned, "Stop bothering me and get out of here." Seeing their comrades subdued, the two black-haired agents behind them immediately drew their magic staves and attacked. Seeing the vibrant blue electricity crackling on the weapons, Dojin knew those were level 4 staves, items designed only to affect ordinary orcs. Not giving them a chance to strike, Dojin slammed the blonde agent into the ground, making him howl in agony. With a gaze sharp enough to emit a chilling, killing intent, he said, "Leave now, unless you want to get hurt." The two agents immediately rushed forward, swinging their staves in a barrage of attacks. Yet Dojin remained completely calm, easily lifting his hand to block both iron staves without taking a scratch. The violent impacts echoed with dry, clashing sounds. He turned his head and shot them a cold glare that made the opponent's skin crawl. Fast as a flash, Dojin grabbed one of the agent's arms. Then he slammed him onto the ground. Instantly, he leaped into the air and unleashed a kick, knocking another one unconscious. The remaining agent, who wore glasses, could only stand frozen, sweating bullets in terror. The bespectacled agent gasped for air, clutching his chest, glaring at Dojin, who stood nonchalantly before him. But in a split second, Dojin's figure blurred and vanished completely right before his eyes. The agent panicked, looking around wildly. Where did he go? Before he could figure it out, Dojin suddenly appeared right behind him, landing a devastating punch directly into his back, sending the agent flying forward. The agent collapsed to the ground, trying to steady himself, crawling up with shaking limbs. Just then, Dojin's deep, commanding voice sounded right behind him. "Hey!" The agent jumped, turning around as cold sweat poured down his face. Dojin asked casually, "Something wrong with unregistered heroes?" Under the suffocating pressure radiating from Dojin, the agent didn't dare utter a word, stammering out a fearful "no." As long as no illegal activity is happening inside the gate, there's no need for any agent intervention. Dojin's eyes darkened, emitting a spine-chilling aura. He followed up with a decisive question. Then what about the rifts? The bespectacled agent was left completely frozen, his face drained of all color in sheer terror. Facing the agent's bewilderment, Dojin's mind quickly brushed over the basics. About this new world. These are gates connecting to another realm, where monsters constantly swarm into the world. The byproducts harvested from hunting them have become an incredibly precious new energy source. Because of that, governments worldwide strictly control gate entry and exit to manage the monsters, yet there still exist unstable spaces that cannot be closed, and people call them rifts. Returning to reality, Dojin looked at the agent nonchalantly and asked, "No matter which gate I go through, you guys will just come looking for me anyway, right? Isn't that right?" he added coldly. "Call it unauthorized entry or whatever you want." Dojin's amber eyes glowed with overwhelming authority. Before his oppressive presence, the bespectacled agent stammered, trembling, "Why, yes, that's right." I tried to regain his composure to explain, "If an unregistered hero enters a gate illegally, the control center is immediately notified of the situation. Nearby agents will be dispatched right away." Thinking of the gravity of the situation, the agent shouted, "But rifts aren't as simple as gates. Even the Hero Association wouldn't let you go, and there's no way to enforce discipline there." But Dojin immediately cut him off, annoyed. "Forget it." Saying that, he nonchalantly reached out and grabbed the agent's head. Suddenly restrained, the agent thought in horror, "He's insane, this bastard. Damn it, I knew I should have reported to headquarters from the start." But all regret came too late. After a moment's hesitation, Dojin threw him with brute force, sending the agent flying backward until he slammed into the ground with a painful thud. Watching his opponent sprawled on the floor, Dojin brushed off his hands indifferently, muttering to himself, "It's no big deal, really." From behind, the agent struggled to crawl back up, grinding his teeth in resentment. "You bastard, if I ever catch you again, you're dead." Ignoring the pathetic threat from his defeated foe, Dojin nonchalantly shouldered his backpack and strode deep into the dark forest, but just then, a thunderous sound suddenly echoed across the horizon. The spatial gate suddenly cracked and shattered into 100 pieces. Dojin felt his mind go completely blank. His body lost consciousness and was violently sucked into a void. In the deep darkness of the afterlife, the soul of the blonde knight Cadell drifted aimlessly, slowly opening his glowing blue eyes in the spiritual space filled with white clouds. Cadell floated upside down, peered at the figure below, and asked, "Who are you?" Standing across from him was the soul of the original Seo Dojun with black hair and simple attire. He looked up and calmly introduced himself. "I am Seo Dojun." He pleaded, "I am dying. If you grant me just one request, I will disappear quietly." But Cadell flatly refused. "No." Cadell explained coldly, "I have no regrets left. After fighting to the death for 15 years, the team I trusted most betrayed me, and my country was destroyed. My friends all died, and my family too. They always told us to live our lives to the fullest, didn't they? Doesn't feel like it now." Glancing at the young man, Cadell continued, "You understand that feeling, don't you?" Cadell's words startled Seo Dogun. He lowered his head in thought for a moment before replying firmly, "Even so, I don't want my grandmother or the Union to live like that." Seeing his determination to protect his family, Cadell sighed, "Ha ha, is that so? Go on then. What do you want?" The legendary knight's tacit agreement made Seo Dojun's face light up with joy. The one thing the original Seo Dojun wanted most before vanishing was for Cadell to protect his loved ones. Accepting the commission, Cadell's soul officially merged and was reborn in the new body. The scene then shifted to the Seoul Gasan Digital Complex. Located in Gyeongshan District, this place is now known as the Hero Complex, where trade in byproducts harvested from transit gates is incredibly bustling. The scale even far exceeds that of top IT companies. Clad in a t-shirt with a torn shoulder and a heavy backpack, Do-jun sauntered through the crowded streets. Finding a shop with a large sign for magic stone purchasing, Do-jun wondered to himself, where to now? He pushed the door open, the bell chiming. The purchasing clerk with tattooed arms, who was busy on his phone, looked up and greeted the customer enthusiastically. Do-jun got straight to the point. "I want to sell some magic stones." Hearing that, the clerk excitedly advertised, "You came to the right place. We offer the best prices in Seoul, no, in all of Korea." But his smile vanished the moment. Dojun turned his backpack upside down, dumping a pile of blood-stained, glowing red magic stones onto the table. Looking at the gruesome loot, the clerk broke into a cold sweat, his eyes bulging as he shouted, "Holy crap, at least wipe the blood off first, man. Please wait while I sort these. Would you like some coffee?" Dugun sat nonchalantly on the sofa, legs crossed, and replied indifferently, "Whatever." While Dujun sipped his coffee at ease, the clerk quickly began the valuation. "A moment later," he reported. "That's 12 low-grade magic stones, 16 mid-grade ones, and 5 high-grade stones." He glanced at Dojun and tapped his calculator. "You know about the 40% commission fee, right? Let's see." The clerk smiled broadly, showing the calculator with the figure of 5,460,000 won, and declared, "In total, you'll receive 5,460,000 won." Hearing the absurd number, Do-jun frowned and interrupted, "Hold on, I did all the hunting, and you're just buying them. So what's with the 40% commission?" Challenged, the clerk immediately showed his true cunning and arrogant colors. "Oh, didn't you know? Usually, we take a 45% commission for walk-ins, but for you, we're only taking 40. He shrugged defiantly. "If you don't want to sell, just take your stuff and go. No one else is gonna give you a better deal than I do." Seeing the guy trying to pull a fast one, Dojun calmly swept the mana stones back into his bag and said, "Fine." Then he turned around to leave. But the clerk immediately grabbed Dojun's wrist, holding him back. He glared and threatened, "You've got to pay the appraisal fee. You know, buddy? Plus the coffee fee. That brings it to 30,000 won for the appraisal and 10,000 won for the coffee. And since I had to wipe up that blood, you ruined my expensive towel too. So you owe me a total of 350,000 won, including the towel." Dojun calmly brushed his hand away and replied coldly, "I don't have the money. Figure it out yourself." Dojun's rigid attitude made the clerk snap. He revealed his true thug-like nature and threatened, "So you're not selling, huh? We've got a couple of C-rank hunters around here. You're done for." Right then and there, heavy, rapid footsteps echoed outside the door. The door swung wide open, revealing a large, muscular, middle-aged man with slicked-back gray hair and a long scar running across his left eye. Stepping inside, he asked bossily, "What's going on? Why'd you call me? Another punk causing trouble?" The purchasing clerk hid behind him, smug. Dojin turned around slowly, locking eyes with the scarred guy with a cold, murderous gaze. Facing Dojin, the scarred representative glared right back. A chilling pressure immediately erupted between the two, but the confrontation ended before it could even begin. In the blink of an eye, the clerk hiding behind the counter was shaking uncontrollably in absolute terror. A loud thud rang out, and the scar-faced thug's massive body was sent flying. When the dust settled, it revealed Dojin's calm silhouette, his t-shirt torn at the shoulder. Under his feet, the thug leader lay motionless, letting out weak, pathetic groans. The entire group of thugs hired for protection had been taken out, sprawled across the cracked floor. Dojin's steady, shuffling footsteps echoed again as he walked over. Placing his hand on the broken glass of the counter where the clerk was cowering in fear, Dojin coldly delivered his verdict: "The commission is 1%. He slightly curled his lips into a wicked smile. His amber eyes blazed with authority, accompanied by a sharp warning: "From now on, make sure you negotiate fairly." Not daring to utter a word, the clerk could only tremble and nod. After settling the mess at the shop, Dojin immediately returned to his small home. He casually tossed a thick, vibrant stack of cash onto the floor. Before their grandmother and little sister Yoon, the sudden appearance of such a large pile of money left both of them completely frozen, eyes wide with astonishment. Grandmother tremblingly picked up the stack of cash, her face full of confusion and worry as she asked, "Dojin, where did this money come from?" Seeing her look of panic, Dojin sat cross-legged on the floor and gently explained, "It's not what you think. I lent some money to a friend to start a business, and their venture is doing really well." But the explanation was so sudden that grandmother couldn't help but be suspicious. She glared at her grandson skeptically. "Do you even have a friend like that?" Her doubt made Dojin break into a cold sweat, and he looked away awkwardly. He forced a smile to hide his embarrassment and muttered meaningfully, "Well, you know. They're a friend I used to hang out with back where I grew up." Though she still had some reservations about her grandson's mysterious friend, seeing Dojin's sincerity, grandmother let out a sigh of relief. Yoon opened her eyes wide and asked her brother happily, "Brother, does this mean we're rich now?" Dojin smiled, feeling relieved, and reached out to ruffle his sister's hair, tenderly replying, "Yes, from now on." Getting the confirmation from her brother, little Yoon and their grandmother danced around the house in joy. The little girl cheered excitedly, "Whoa, we're rich! We're rich people now." She dashed over and hugged Dojin happily. Feeling the warmth of his little sister, Dojin's mind wandered back to his fateful encounter with the soul of the original Seol Dojin in the void. At that time, the poor young man had clasped his hands and pleaded, "Grandmother and Yoon, please, help them live in a place safer than anywhere else." But he had vanished into nothingness before Dojin could even answer, and when he woke up, the soul of the legendary swordsman had completely merged, becoming the Seol Dojin of this world. Dojin looked at the reflection of the two siblings in the mirror. He knew full well that the apartment dubbed the safest in Korea currently cost 107 billion won, even though he had no obligation to fulfill a one-sided promise to the deceased. But looking at Yoon clutching his neck, Dojin thought to himself, as long as he could regain his peak power, then money wouldn't be a big problem, because the rifts, gates, and freakish monsters in this world were all far too weak compared to the world he had once seen collapse. To someone who once stood at the pinnacle with the title of Sword Saint, everything here was really just child's play. Even though right now he still hadn't recovered even 1/10 of his former strength, Dojin was completely confident in his abilities. Just as he was deep in thought, a series of violent, thunderous knocks on the door suddenly echoed, shaking the small house. The whole family jumped in alarm. From outside the door, a rude, arrogant voice suddenly boomed, "Seo Dojin, you're in there, aren't you?" To reassure his family, Dojin turned to his grandmother and said quietly, "Let me go see. You all just stay inside." With that, he firmly unlatched the iron gate, casually stepped out in his slippers, and faced the troublemakers. As soon as he stepped out, two burly men came into view, waiting for him. The sly-looking blonde guy stared him down and said haughtily, "Seo Dojin, you're going to keep paying your debts on time, right?" Without waiting for Dojin to answer, the brown-haired guy joined in with a mocking smirk. "Do you even know how much you owe?" "A massive chunk, 48 million won." He looked at the two loan sharks with utter disdain. Dojin squinted slightly, his mind quickly piecing together the memories of the body's original owner. He thought to himself, are these guys loan sharks or what? The real Dojun had borrowed money before he died. It turned out the initial principal was only 5 million won, borrowed to cover his grandmother's hospital bills. Yet in such a short time, these bloodsuckers had inflated the figure tenfold on their own. Seeing Dojun silent, the brown-haired guy stepped closer, chin tilted up, and barked, "You made money from the gate, right? Hand it all over." But before he could even finish his sentence, Dojun took decisive action. Without warning, he channeled his strength into his fist and delivered a powerful hook straight to the brown-haired man's face. The punch, delivered with terrifying speed and force, made a sharp thwack sound, sending the big thug flying. Seeing his partner knocked out in an instant, the blond guy froze, his eyes widening in terror as he stammered, "What the?" Before he could recover, Dojun suddenly appeared behind him, his eyes darkening and radiating a bone-chilling aura. As the blond guy trembled violently, Dojun spoke coldly. "I've already paid back over 9 million won. If anything, I'm the one who should be getting money back." Pure fear gripped the blond guy's mind. Looking at Dojun's terrifying expression, sweat poured down him like rain as he tremblingly asked, Are you really Seo Dojun?" Dojun slowly raised his fist, his eyes burning with killing intent, and calmly declared, "Tell your boss I'll be dropping by to visit soon." With that, Dojun put his weight into a thunderous punch straight to the blond guy's face. After cleaning up the two nuisances, Dojun calmly headed back inside. A few days later, he decided to take his little sister, Union, shopping at a bustling mall in Seoul to make up for the hard times she'd endured. Stepping into the toy store, little Union was completely mesmerized by the shelves stacked with adorable stuffed bears. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. She turned to her brother and asked hesitantly, "Wow, can I really buy one? Can I get a new doll?" Dojun smiled softly at his sister and replied gently, "Of course. We're done with the clothes, so now you can buy anything else you want." To him, ever since he received the memories of the original Seo Dojun, the emotions that had gone cold after 15 years of fighting for survival in his previous life were finally beginning to change. At first, it was simply pity for the two of them. But after seeing just how kind and loving the real Seo Dojun was toward Union, his stepsister, he promised himself he would protect these warm feelings at all costs. He looked at Union, who was squatting down, admiring the stuffed bears on the shelf before timidly hugging a small white rabbit and bringing it to him. Dojun smiled slightly as she looked up with her big round eyes and asked, "Big brother, can I buy this one?" Looking at the tiny white rabbit in her hands, Dojun suddenly reached out, grabbed a giant yellow teddy bear from beside it, and hoisted it onto his shoulder. Ignoring Union's bewildered expression, he said casually, "I told you to take whatever you wanted, didn't I?" The generosity and pampering from her brother made little Union beam with happiness. After shopping to their heart's content, the two stopped at a busy restaurant to fill their hungry bellies. The table was spread with everything, from black bean noodles with a fried egg to hamburgers and piping hot fries. The two were happily enjoying their meal when suddenly whispers broke out behind them. "Wait, is that Seo Dojun?" "Yeah, it's Seo Dojun." Dojun paused, feeling suspicious, while Union continued munching on her burger. Just then, a woman with blonde hair tied in a high bun and sunglasses perched on her head walked over arrogantly, flanked by two burly, bald bodyguards. She looked at Dojun with a sneer. "What's with this look? Dressed like that, you look like a total nobody." Then, she cast a malicious glance toward Union, who looked confused. "Who's that sitting next to you?" She didn't stop there. The woman continued with cruel insults. "Are you causing trouble and getting someone pregnant just like your mother?" These words hit his breaking point. Dojun's eyes suddenly went pitch black, emitting a freezing aura that weighed heavily over the entire restaurant. Meanwhile, little Union was still innocently munching on her food, inwardly confused and wondering, who even is this lady? She leaned in, looked down at their table, and demanded haughtily, "What's your name, brat?" Union, still chewing her burger, looked up innocently and answered, "Lee Union." Hearing that name, the woman repeated it with a mocking sneer. "Lee Union, huh? Are you part of the Lee family too?" She looked the girl up and down before insulting her further. "Look at how you're dressed. You're just as sloppy as your mother." She then turned to look at Dojun with a provocative glare, right? Facing the insults directed at his family, Dojun remained silent, his head bowed, looking grim. His attitude only emboldened her further, and she shouted with disdain, "What's the matter? Did you go mute? Not going to answer?" She roughly crowded into Uni's space, barking threateningly, "Hey kid, do you even know what a whore is?" Her aggressive behavior, combined with the two bald bodyguards standing behind her, made the atmosphere incredibly tense. Dojin's eyes suddenly flared with a murderous golden light. Dojin looked up slightly, his cold eyes burning with resentment. Is that the truth? Dojin had been born an illegitimate child and had lived in poverty. His mother passed away when he was only 7, and he was rarely allowed to set foot in his father's house. For over 15 years, Dojin had lived through extreme discrimination and contempt. The tragedy peaked when his father's legal wife gave birth to a son. I was completely abandoned, and after that, Dojin was kicked out of the house. He had to move in with his stepsister at their grandmother's place. Looking at the stepsister standing in front of him, a memory of his former self flashed through Dojun's mind. Back then, he used to wonder, Dojin, what is wrong with your brain that you're putting up with all of this? But he told himself that from now on, everything would be different. Just then, his stepsister sneered, I've lived under the same roof as you for 12 years, and you're still just as disgusting as ever. She continued to spew insults. Not only are your looks and personality trash, but you're too stupid to even study properly. But this time, Dojin didn't hold back as he used to. He coldly countered, You're just incredibly insecure when you see other women, especially those who are prettier and kinder than you. His sharp words made the two bodyguards behind her break into a cold sweat in shock. Dojun stared straight at her and added, You only care about your brother's money. You're no better than this kid here at all. Uni looked at her older brother in confusion, while Dojin kept an expressionless face as he faced his completely stunned stepsister. Caught dead to rights, the stepsister went mad with rage, her face twisting as she shrieked, What? Just as the tension reached a breaking point, the sound of footsteps clicked against the floor, followed by an elegant voice. Dojin, it's been a long time. Appearing before them was his stepmother with her luxurious wavy blonde hair. Seeing her mother, the stepsister hurriedly ran over to tattle. Mom, do you know what this brat just said to me? I told me that I was... Before she could finish her sentence, the stepmother coldly cut her off. Stop it! The stepmother suddenly glared with a terrifying intensity, radiating a dark pressure as she barked at her daughter. Stand there and stay still. What is this uncivilized behavior? But right after that, she immediately flipped her attitude, putting on a fake smile as she turned toward Dojin. That's right, Dojin, how have you been lately? Even if you're busy, I hope you come home to visit once in a while. Looking at her smiling face, Dojin coldly brushed past her, internally feeling nothing but contempt. Such a hypocrite. You're the one who made my life miserable for the last 12 years. The stepmother continued to smile with hidden malice, adding, Your father has always been very worried about you. It made Dojin want to gag in total disgust. How disgusting! Dojin looked straight at the stepmother and coldly ordered her to leave. Get lost! The blunt remark made the stepmother's face darken in anger. Clenching her fists in fury, she didn't bother arguing back. She turned on her heel and strode away. As she walked, a deep sense of suspicion rose in her heart, wondering if this was really the illegitimate Dojin she knew, the one who used to just lower his head and endure it, even when he was slapped. Seeing her mother leave, the stepsister hurriedly chased after her along with the two bald bodyguards. Mom, wait for me! Returning to the dining table, Dojun gently told his younger sister, Let's go, my dear Uni. The little girl obediently replied, walking away under the streetlights. Dojin thought to himself, the Dojin who only knew how to stay silent and suffer had completely vanished. And those people better realize that soon, unless they wanted to bring disaster upon themselves. That night, the stepmother's luxury car sped through the streets of Seoul. Inside, the stepsister couldn't stop complaining in frustration to her mother. Mom, why did you just leave like that? You should have crushed that brat. Do you know what he said to me? Ignoring her daughter's nagging, the stepmother coldly called the driver, who was also her manager. Receiving a prompt acknowledgement from her subordinate, she glared and asked point-blank, Why is Dojin still alive? The question made the bald manager break into a cold sweat, stammering that according to the reports, the assassin, Kong Chulyu, was supposed to have taken Dojin out at the gate. Her anger flared and the stepmother shouted, Then why? Why is that brat who was supposed to be dead still walking around? The manager could only tremble and apologize, promising to check into it immediately. Witnessing the terrifying exchange, the stepsister swallowed hard in horror and pressed, He was supposed to be dead? Mom, what do you mean? What are you talking about? But the stepmother just silently crossed her arms, her face cold and devoid of emotion. Suspicion and fear made the stepsister lose her composure, and she screamed in the middle of the car. "What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to kill Dojin, mother?" The stepmother shot a cold, side-eyed glance and retorted, "You still have a thing for that brat, Dojin?" "Struck right at the heart," she frantically shouted in denial. "No, it's not like that!" "But if grandfather or father finds out about this..." Before she could finish, the stepmother violently reached out and clamped a hand over the girl's mouth. Her eyes glinting with a vicious glare, she snarled a threat at her daughter. "I told you I'd handle it myself. Just worry about your own business." The brutal force left the daughter trembling in silence, tears streaming down her face in fear. Looking out the car window at the dim streetlights, the stepmother's hatred for Dojin reached a boiling point. Thinking of that brat's arrogant defiance, she gritted her teeth and made a cruel decision. "How dare you talk back to me, you filthy dog? I will get rid of him no matter what." 15 years ago, a horrific catastrophe struck when mysterious spatial rifts suddenly appeared in the sky. From deep within those dark cracks, hordes of ferocious monsters poured out, slaughtering humanity and plunging the entire world into total chaos and destruction. However, that extreme turmoil quickly subsided. Thanks to the timely emergence of heroes and the extraction of spirit stones harvested from the monsters' remains, a new era began. These spirit stones became a perfect substitute for traditional energy sources from then on. Every nation on Earth poured its resources into building gates around the rifts, reshaping the entire global industrial structure around two core concepts: gates and heroes. And in this era, if you want to change your life and make a fortune, you absolutely must become a true hero. Stepping out of the taxi, Dojin strolled casually along the busy streets of Seoul. His destination was the funding agency's office, the lair of the loan sharks who had threatened his family. Hearing Dojin's steady footsteps approaching, the boss, wearing sunglasses, took a leisurely drag of his cigarette, raised an eyebrow, and asked arrogantly, "Who the hell are you, kid?" Behind him, two hulking henchmen with blonde and brown hair glared at him menacingly. The boss coolly stubbed out his cigarette in an ashtray and barked harshly. "You've got a lot of nerve showing your face here, after beating up my guys?" "Yet." Dojin calmly sat down on the sofa and replied coldly, "No matter how I look at it, I feel like I'm the one losing out in this deal." His deadpan statement made the boss pause, confused, and he asked, "Losing out? What do you mean by losing out?" Dojin casually demanded, "I need compensation for the mental, physical, and material damages I've suffered all this time." Seeing the young man's arrogant attitude, the boss broke into a cold sweat, feeling wary. He thought to himself that the once gentle and spineless character of this brat had completely changed, especially considering he had easily taken down his henchman earlier. The boss knew he could no longer underestimate this opponent. He narrowed his eyes, observing the faint purple spirit energy silently shimmering around him. Dojin mused that he must have awakened his abilities after surviving his return from the gate. The boss looked down at him with contempt and mocked, "Looks like you found something to make you confident. Should I show you the fate of those who like to show off just because they're awakened?" Just then, he slammed his hand on the table and the office door swung open. The boss's hulking, fierce henchmen immediately marched in, standing tall and looming right behind Dojin. These punks who are always full of themselves because of their awakened abilities are just rank C trash. By the way, I have plenty of men under me who can make a rank C like you stop talking forever. Facing the entourage of bodyguards, Dojin remained calm on the sofa, his face completely expressionless. The boss turned away haughtily and sat down. I wasn't finished. That arrogant attitude drove the henchman in the red shirt and glasses into a frenzy. He lunged forward, swinging his fist and shouting, "What? A little brat like you dares to run your mouth at me?" But he had severely underestimated his opponent. Fast as lightning, Dojin dodged the attack by a hair's breadth, then channeled his strength into a powerful direct punch straight into the face of the bespectacled henchman. The force of the blow sent the guy flying backward, crashing into the sofa before collapsing to the floor in agony, to the utter shock of his accomplices. "You don't just run this private loan business, do you?" Not letting the bald guy or the eye patch guy react, Dojin unleashed a flurry of thunderous punches, taking them down in the blink of an eye. He declared coldly, "I know you also make fake IDs. I need a hero ID to make some money." As the hulking henchman in the yellow shirt rushed up to ambush him, Dojin dodged with lightning speed. Then he launched a thunderous counterpunch. The purple spirit energy erupted, tearing through the air and sending his obstacle flying in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the entire gang of thugs was defeated, lying scattered across the cracked office floor. Standing amidst the rubble, Dojun looked down at the boss who was sprawled on the ground. He issued his demand. "I need a perfect ID, no flaws." Dojun glared at him with cold, sharp eyes and issued an ultimatum. "You have until tomorrow." Looking at his fallen subordinates, the boss and the two henchmen with blonde and brown hair could only tremble violently, cold sweat pouring down them in terror. In his panic, the boss frantically assessed Dojun's strength. He couldn't believe someone who was once so weak now possessed such overwhelming power. He guessed this was certainly not the strength of a rank D or rank C hero. Dojun might very well be rank B. Seeing the boss still stunned, Dojun barked, "Why haven't you answered me?" The suffocating pressure made the boss not dare to hesitate for a second, and he nodded repeatedly, "Yes, sir." But Dojun wasn't done yet. He suddenly stepped forward, gripped the man's shoulder tightly, and said coldly, "Oh, right, one more thing." Dojun's eyes suddenly ignited with a sinister, murderous intent. "You pressed him for the mastermind. Did Hong Hiju order you to kill me?" The question hit home, and the boss froze. Memories of his meeting with that wicked woman flickered through his mind. Dojun tightened his grip, causing the man pain, and growled decisively, "Answer me." The crushing grip made the boss shriek in agony as his blonde and brown-haired henchmen watched in horror. The boss couldn't take it anymore. Desperate, he spilled everything. "Hong Hiju. She said it would be perfect if we burdened you with so much debt that you'd be driven to suicide." "That's all she said. Please, spare me, please." Dojun's face hardened coldly. He asked in a low voice, "Suicide, you say? So, is that why you locked me in the gate?" At the question, the boss fell to the ground in terror, trembling and waving his hands in defense. "Locked you in the gate? I know nothing about that. Truly, I swear." He hurriedly clasped his hands and pleaded, "I wouldn't get a single one if you died in there. So there's no way I would have put you in that gate, I swear it." Dojun touched his chin, lost in thought, and murmured the name Kong Chian Yu. Then, he coldly ordered the boss who was cowering in his seat, "That bastard is the one who sent me to the gate. I want every bit of information on him by tomorrow." The boss hurriedly nodded. "I understand." Not staying a second longer, Dojun turned and strode out of the office, leaving the blonde henchman cowering by the door in fear. He stepped out under the windy Seoul sky. Dojun narrowed his eyes in contemplation. The final plea of the original Seo Dojun echoed in his mind, "Please help my grandmother and Uni, so that Yoon can live somewhere safer than anywhere else." With a sigh, Dojun muttered to himself, "What a fool." His eyes suddenly flared with a steady, brilliant golden light. As the wind whipped his hair, Dojun made up his mind, "Now that I've started this, I'll set everything right." Dojun took out his brand new B-rank hero certification card and casually scanned it at the sensor for the restricted area. The system beeped to confirm the card, but as soon as he stepped past the barrier, a bright red warning appeared. "Your rank is below the recommended level." Ignoring the mechanical voice warning him of the danger outside, Dojun glanced at the card and grumbled about the loan shark. That boss, he should have just given me an A-rank card to begin with. He strolled casually into the night gate. It was a B-rank gate with a narrow tunnel layout, a D-rank scale, and an A-rank difficulty recommendation. Ordinarily, a dungeon like this would be extremely tough for anyone trying to solo it. But for Dojun, this confined tunnel terrain was actually an advantage that made it easy for him to handle alone. Walking deep into this dark tunnel, Dojun calculated, "If my luck is bad, I'll have to face hundreds of monsters in this cramped, dark space all by myself." Yet, instead of worrying, his lips curled into an excited smile. "This is going to be fun." Just then, from the gloomy darkness, a giant snake monster with golden armor on its head and glowing, evil green eyes lunged out to attack. Dojun moved like lightning, bracing himself and channeling power into his sharp gauntlets, ready to fight. The monster frantically opened its fanged maw, intending to swallow its prey whole. But Dojun easily dodged it and unleashed a powerful, flaming slash that tore through its body. The strike was precise, sending green, toxic blood splattering. Dojun stared coldly at the monster as it collapsed, identifying it, a black viper, a poisonous snake whose venom causes paralysis even with a mere graze. Dojun moved like a flash of lightning, rolling to dodge the viper's strike by a hair's breadth. He landed perfectly, and as soon as he regained his balance, unleashed a fatal slash that tore through the monster's hard golden armor, splattering green venom everywhere. The giant snake's carcass slumped to the ground. Looking at the immobile monster, Do-jun inspected his blood-stained gauntlets and mused, "Cost me 3,001. Only 3,001, but these gloves are pretty decent." He walked slowly toward the snake's corpse and shoved his claws into its head to scavenge for loot. But after digging for a while, Do-gun frowned in disappointment. No magic stone in this one either? Do-gun recalled the knowledge from his previous life and thought, if it's anything like the old world, the drop rate for a magic stone from a black viper is about 3%. Thinking of the effort ahead, he clicked his tongue. Looks like I'll have to hunt hundreds of them. Do-gun continued his leisurely stroll deep into the dark tunnel. As he stepped into an open area, skeletons began to appear all around him. They were moving, radiating a dark, gloomy aura. But Do-jun didn't even bother looking at these small fries. He looked up at the giant shadow looming ahead and asked nonchalantly, "Are you the boss?" Appearing right before his eyes was a black viper of immense, superior size, its glowing green eyes glaring down at him with killing intent. Facing the boss-level monster, Do-gun calmly set his heavy backpack on the ground and muttered, "I'm lost too, so this is actually a bit of a relief." Without hesitation, he sprang into the air. He channeled all his strength into a fist aimed straight at the golden-armored crown of the giant snake. Do-jun resolved, I should finish this quickly and head back. Do-gun's powerful punch landed squarely on the monster's golden-armored head, but a clashing sound rang out, accompanied by such strong recoil that he was taken aback. He wondered, my attack didn't do any damage? The snake's golden armor was too hard. His bare-handed punch hadn't left a single scratch. Right after that, the giant black viper frantically swung its massive tail, creating a storm of wind. Do-jun nimbly ducked to dodge by a hair. The crushing blow missed its mark and smashed into the ground, shattering the rocks. The dirt exploded in a cloud of dust, throwing Do-jun backward and forcing him to scramble to find his footing. The monster threw its head back, roaring in a frenzy of triumph. Do-jun dragged his hands against the ground to cut his momentum. Then, like a bolt of lightning, he surged forward across the ground, searching for an opening. He gathered his strength, closed the distance, and delivered a massive punch straight into the serpent's purple torso. I wanted to test the limits of its defense, but the attack didn't have the impact he expected. Facing the monster that loomed over him, radiating a dark, ominous aura, Do-jun clicked his tongue in frustration. He thought to himself, just as I figured. This thing is on a different level than the snakes I just crushed. Its hide is incredibly hard. My punches are useless. Trapped in a tight spot, Do-jun struggled because his body hadn't fully recovered the power from his past life. What do I do now? If I had just regained my energy in time, it would have been... Suddenly, his eyes locked onto something beneath his feet. Lying right next to the iron armor of a fallen skeleton was a rusted, broken sword buried in the ground. Do-jun muttered to himself, "Is this..." He scrutinized the pathetic weapon and sighed. It's completely trashed, though. No other choice. But for a legendary sword god like him, the weapon was never the obstacle. No matter how old or broken the sword was, its power ultimately depended on the person wielding it. Thinking is doing. Do-jun stepped forward slowly, pulled the sword from the ground, and aimed it straight at the giant black serpent charging toward him. He whispered a silent apology to the deceased owner. "This sword, mind if I borrow it for a moment?" Do-jun decisively swung the broken blade, charging head-on at the giant black serpent. He nimbly slipped past its massive body. His eyes turned cold and murderous as he declared arrogantly, "Consider it an honor that you're about to be killed by my hand, you snake-headed freak." He channeled every bit of his remaining spirit energy into his hand. As he gripped the rusty hilt, a brilliant golden light erupted, tearing right through the monster's steel-hard armor. But because it couldn't withstand the immense pressure of his magic, the broken sword in Do-jun's hand shattered into 100 pieces. Looking at the hilt left in his grasp, Do-jun let out a sigh. Behind him, the giant head of the black serpent collapsed, completely lifeless. He thought to himself, if I hadn't taken it out, it could have been a catastrophe. Not bothering to look back, Do-jun walked toward the monster's carcass. He decisively jabbed his hand down to extract one of its sharp, jagged fangs. Examining the fang, which was stained with green venom, Do-jun muttered, "A bit short for a greatsword, but if I get it reinforced, It might come in handy. Dojun nonchalantly slung his new weapon over his shoulder and strode away. He told himself, at least this place is better than the Namsan site. Under the clear, glowing full moon, Dojun strolled out of the B-rank dungeon portal. He let out a sigh of relief, but couldn't help but ponder, I can't believe I wasted so much time on a B-rank gate like this. Now, recovering my strength is the top priority. He clenched his fist with determination, walking through the bustling heart of Seoul, which was filled with the glow of city lights. Dojun fell into a brief moment of reflection as he thought about the past. I'm glad my old comrades aren't seeing me like this, he thought, as the heroic images of his former teammates from his past world flickered in his memory. At the Magic Stone trading shop, a middle-aged hunter wearing a bandana walked in and dumped a pile of high-quality red magic stones onto the scale. The trader spoke up. Looks like you've got a lot of high-quality stones again, as usual. Our commission fee is 40%. Hearing such a high rate, the middle-aged hunter frowned. Isn't that commission a little steep? I'm just doing the standard rate. Can't you cut me a deal? The trader immediately waved his hands, explaining, Oh, come on! You know my commission is the lowest around, right? Don't you? He said, counting the stack of cash to convince him. At the central gate, they take an extra 5% for floor fees. Plus, we don't keep transaction records, so you don't have to pay extra taxes. Think about it. This is a clean deal, no trouble, and it's a great price. Seeing the logic, the hunter clicked his tongue and took the cash. With the money in his hand, the hunter curiously looked at the trader's beat-up face and asked, By the way, what happened to your face? That question hit a sore spot, and the trader clutched his head, groaning, Don't make me remember. Some psycho came out of nowhere and smashed the security team here. Then it was my turn. Hearing this, the hunter laughed dismissively. Who told them to have only C-rank guards? They were too relaxed. Like I said, rank doesn't really matter. It's the skills that count. Ranks are just for the association to organize things above. Real strength is different. If you think the same rank means the same skill level, you're dead wrong. The middle-aged hunter continued to preach about the difference between a guard who just got his license to protect a shop and a hero who risks his life hunting monsters. It's a world of difference. The man's rambling made the trader extremely annoyed. He cursed internally. My God, get out of here now that you're done. Why are you standing there yapping? Seeing the trader's indifferent attitude, the hunter chuckled and turned to leave. We've known each other for a long time, after all. If you need me, just give a shout. Aha! But just as the hunter stepped out the door, a familiar figure brushed past him, walking in with messy black hair and cold, sharp eyes. SEO Dojun had returned to the Magic Stone shop. As soon as the battered trader saw Dojun walk through the door, his eyes popped open. He pointed a trembling finger at him and shouted furiously, It's him! This bastard is the one who did this to my face! Hearing the commotion, the middle-aged hunter with the bandana turned his head to look at Dojun and commented curiously, Oh, this guy? That guy looks pretty weak, and is this kid trying to stir up trouble here? Never missing a chance to show off his authority, the middle-aged hunter immediately stepped forward to block the path, tensed his sinewy arms, and loudly confronted Dojun. Are you the one causing a ruckus here? You claim to be a hero, yet you go around hitting innocent civilians? Don't you know that heroes aren't supposed to hit people, pal? The clerk curled his lip into a sinister smile, thinking to himself with smug satisfaction, that guy was a pro-hero for 7 years. He's got connections everywhere, better not mess with him. But in response to their posturing, Dojun just slightly turned his head, his amber eyes glowing with a sharp, chilling intensity, followed by a blunt dismissal. Get lost. An overwhelming pressure suddenly erupted, freezing both the middle-aged hunter and the clerk in their tracks. Dojun stared coldly into the hunter's eyes and asked indifferently, You looking for a fight or what? The middle-aged hunter clenched his fists, but cold sweat was already pouring down him. His survival instincts kicked in, and he started panicking, thinking, Damn this brat. The heroes I've seen die were all killed by friendly fire, not by monsters. 7 years of experience told him he had absolutely no chance of winning. The hunter immediately changed his tone, gave a few fake coughs, and laughed awkwardly. Ahem, catch you later, I've got to go. With that said, he turned and bolted out of the store, leaving the clerk standing there completely bewildered. Dojun slowly turned to look at the trembling clerk and asked, Do you have a problem with me? The soft yet lethal question made the clerk jump, his face turning deathly pale with terror, not giving him a moment to recover. Dojin slammed his heavy backpack, packed with glowing red magic stones, onto the counter and coldly commanded, "Pay up." Looking at the pile of sparkling high-grade magic stones filling the bag, the clerk was stunned, sweat dripping down his face in shock. "What is this? High-grade magic stones? Who the hell is this guy?" To save his own skin, he hurriedly tapped away at his computer with trembling hands to calculate the price. A moment later, he looked up and reported the massive sum. With a very respectful expression, he said, "The total comes to 150 million won." Hearing the blatantly scammed amount, Dojin narrowed his eyes, thinking to himself, "A whole day of hunting and I only get 150 million? He held out his hand and said casually, "Give me the 150 million. The clerk broke into a cold sweat, trembling as he tried to explain, "Wait, we still need to deduct our commission." Immediately, Dojun glared, his eyes flashing with a chilling, golden killing intent. The terrifying pressure made the clerk flinch in fear, and he quickly corrected himself. "I mean, did I misspeak? Okay, fine, just a 1% commission." The corner of Dojun's mouth curled into a mocking smile. He coolly stated the actual amount after deducting the 1% commission for the high-grade magic stones. "Bring it out." Caught in his scam, the clerk screamed internally in a rage, "You son of a bitch! I said the commission is 40%. Are you deaf or something?" But looking at Dojin's terrifying face, he swallowed his anger and stammered, About that for transactions over 1 billion won. I need manager approval." Dojin leaned in close and coldly ordered, "Then go get it. Now." Not daring to delay, the clerk hurriedly called the manager. "Yes, boss, yeah, that's what's happening." But before he could finish, Dojin snatched the phone from his hand, held it to his ear, and said, "They're listening, right? Tell them to pay me, fast," from the other end of the line. The manager's voice dropped, sounding very wary. "Yes, I understand. Could you please put the clerk back on?" But Dojin didn't bother listening. He swung his arm and threw the phone with such force that it embedded itself directly into the wall. It cracked right next to the clerk's head, shattering into 100 pieces. Dojun calmly commanded. The manager already said, "Okay, pay up now." Witnessing such brutal violence, the clerk was shaking uncontrollably, his face completely bloodless. Yes," he stammered, then hurriedly rushed to open the safe. He pulled out stacks of high-denomination cash and filled 2 giant bags. Dojun casually strode out of the store, not forgetting to leave a sinister parting remark. "Let's do it like this next time." Watching his arrogant back, the clerk wept in frustration. Since when did shaking people down become okay? 10 minutes later, the door to the office burst open. The manager rushed in, sweating and furious, shouting, "Why the hell didn't you answer my call?" "What was that call about?" The clerk, exhausted and face covered in bandages, spoke weakly to his boss. "Boss, I quit. I can't do this anymore." Looking at the smashed phone embedded in the cracked wall, the manager broke into a cold sweat in astonishment. Just then, the manager's phone started ringing incessantly. He quickly answered, "Yeah, Dojun, it's me." From the other end of the line, a cold, haughty voice replied, "Come to me." On the busy streets of Seoul, the sound of high heels clicked sharply against the pavement. It was Hyunjun, the beautiful S-rank hero. With her striking purple hair and a trendy white trench coat, she strode through the crowd, her appearance immediately drawing admiring glances. Passers-by couldn't help but buzz with excitement. "Wow! Is that Hyunjun? No way, is it really her?" "It really is Dojun." Dojun sauntered up and pushed open the door to his uncle's magic stone shop. Hearing the door chime, the employee instinctively bowed to greet him. "Welcome, customer." But the moment he looked up and saw who had just walked in, the employee froze, shouting in a panic, "Hyunjun!" Dojun slowly lowered her sunglasses. Wearing a captivating smile, she said, "Yeah, it's me, Hyunjun." Her sudden appearance left the employee in total shock. His mind raced as he trembled, thinking, Hyunjun, the 4th-ranked S-class hero of South Korea. Rumor has it she's the boss's niece. But what is she doing here? Dojun strolled inside, the sharp click of her heels echoing powerfully against the stone floor. She spoke nonchalantly. "My uncle said you've been having a massive headache because of some hero who keeps forcing people to buy magic stones." She plopped down onto the sofa, resting her chin on her hand, and locked her cold, sharp purple eyes onto the employee. "Would you mind telling me the details?" The employee standing behind him could only tremble in fear, crushed by the suffocating aura of the S-class heroine. Dojun stood silently in the courtyard of the traditional house. Even after hunting all day long, he had only managed to earn about 100 million won. Dojun mused to himself, if I keep going at this slow pace, I'm afraid I won't be ready for the upcoming incidents. To clear an S-class gate solo as soon as possible, the most important thing right now for Dojun was to restore his body and power to their prime state. But this world was completely different from his old one. The mana concentration in the air here was far too thin. Dojun concluded that even if he persisted in accumulating mana every day, it would take at least 3 years, maybe even longer, to fully recover. He thought to himself, the situation would be better if I had a good set of gear, but the problem is that even the junk items around here cost me over 100 million won already. Just as Dojun was deep in thought, he was startled by an abnormal energy surge. Hearing a strange sound coming from behind him, Dojun immediately turned around on high alert. He saw Yuna still playing innocently under the porch. He rushed over, snatched her up, and shouted, "Yuna, we have to get inside now!" In a flash, Dojun carried his little sister into the room and slammed the door shut. Witnessing her grandson's sudden, panicked reaction, his grandmother, who was sitting inside, was incredibly confused and quickly asked, "What's wrong, Dojun?" Before Dojun could even explain, violent tremors suddenly erupted, shaking the entire house. The overwhelming pressure made his grandmother lose her balance and collapse to the floor, crying out in terror, "Oh no! An earthquake?" Little Yuna also cried out in fear, clutching Dojun's arm tightly. "Is it an earthquake?" But Dojun's eyes suddenly flared with a cold, golden light. He said in a serious tone, "No, this isn't an earthquake. It's a massive purple-red spatial rift. It suddenly cracked open right in the sky, radiating a terrifying killing intent." The ear-piercing sound of tearing space echoed across the entire region, directly engulfing Dojun's small home. Inside the house, grandmother and Yuna were terrified, clinging to each other. "Dojun, what is happening?" Blocking the door, Dojun warned them sternly. "It's too dangerous. Don't go outside right now." With that, he surged forward with explosive speed, leaping straight into the purple-red dark energy of the rift. Behind him, the desperate screams of his grandmother and Yuna echoed out, "Dojun!" At the same time, at the Seoul Hero Association headquarters, emergency sirens blared incessantly. In the control room, an employee reported in a panic, "Team leader, a new rift has just been detected in Mappo." The shocking news left the supervisor stunned. A new rift after 63 days? He stood up immediately and shouted orders to his subordinates. "Mappo, the White Lion Guild is closest to there. Contact them immediately. Send any hero nearby there right now," he asked urgently. Where exactly was the rift detected? The operator replied, trembling, "In the yard of a private residence." Hearing the answer, the supervisor furrowed his brow, rubbing his temples in frustration. "A private house? This is a headache. If a non-hero enters this new rift, no one can enter until the person inside comes out." The danger from this new rift in Mappo was greater than anyone could imagine, because if someone died inside, a massive wave of monsters would burst out within 10 days, turning the bustling city of Seoul into a desolate wasteland. In the Seoul Hero Association control room, a tense atmosphere filled the air. "Have we identified who entered the rift?" An employee reported quickly. "The person who entered is Seo Dojun. He lives in the house where the rift appeared. His grandmother said he dove into the rift to save his little sister." Hearing this, the blonde team leader's face changed, and he asked anxiously, "So he's not a hero? If a civilian enters a rift, what's the monster outbreak rate?" Responding to his question, a bright red number appeared on the system screen. 99.9%. The near absolute outbreak probability left the control room in dead silence. Utter tension. Just then, in the office of T Group, a file folder was slammed violently onto the desk with a sharp crash. The stepmother, Hong Hiju, shouted angrily, "Awakened? You're telling me Dojun has awakened?" Standing cowering in front of her, Manager Lai, the bald man, broke into a cold sweat as he reported, "He hasn't registered with the Hero Association yet, but I have confirmed he has awakened since the previous gate incident." Hearing this, Hiju gritted her teeth in rage, asking for accountability. What the hell was Kang Chio Liu doing? She frantically slammed the table repeatedly, yelling with fury, "I knew I should have handled that bastard myself. Why did he mess things up? And why did he take the money for nothing?" Calming her rage, Hiju glared at her subordinate and ordered, Manager Lai, tell that bastard Kang Chio Liu clearly, if he doesn't take care of Dojin properly, he better get ready to pay me back 10 times what he was paid. However, Manager Lai hurriedly advised, there is no longer any need to contact Kang Chio Liu, ma'am. Hiro narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, what's that supposed to mean? Manager Lai immediately reported the shocking news that had just arrived. A new rift has appeared in Maple. It's right at Dojin's house. I received word that he's already entered the rift. The media is going to report it any minute now. Well, I guess that means we won't be seeing that brat again, right? Standing with his head bowed, Manager Lai broke into a cold sweat and timidly confirmed it was true. Hiro's eyes narrowed, flickering with cruelty. She ordered coldly, keep monitoring it until we are certain. She received a fearful, compliant response from her subordinate. The manager quickly retreated from the T Corporation building. Meanwhile, Dojin had officially stepped inside the rift. He walked leisurely barefoot on the lush green grass, then straightened up, his muscular upper body bare. Dojin looked around and whispered to himself, unbelievable. In his mind, memories of his youth, sleeping peacefully under a tree in his old world, suddenly came flooding back. Dojin realized this place was incredibly familiar. It was the Patiswa Forest, a place he used to pass through when he was younger. He walked slowly through the dense canopy, feeling the cool breeze brushing against his hair. From the tall trees to the grass, the breeze, the density of mana in the air, and even the clouds in the sky. It was all exactly the same. Recalling the topographical map of the familiar forest, Dojin told himself, so if I head this way, he strode forward decisively. After walking for a while, Dojin curled his lips into a satisfied smile. I knew it, he said as it loomed right before his eyes. It was the World Tree, a colossal ancient deity tree with vast branches covering a corner of the sky, and a brilliant, pure blue mana energy swirling incessantly at the center of its trunk. Looking at the magical light sparkling from the ancient trunk, Dojin pondered. An ancient deity tree containing the purest flow of mana. He slowly approached it. He placed his hand on the rough bark to feel the familiar energy surging within. Painful memories of the day. His old world ended flooded his mind once again. The collapse of my old world all started when this tree was incinerated, disrupting the flow of mana. He crouched down on a rock ledge, watching the specks of mana floating by. He drifted off in thought, but now that I see the tree still standing, I don't know why, but I can restore the mana levels to what they were back then. A wicked, confident smile suddenly spread across Dojun's face. Under the canopy of the Great World Tree, which was radiating a mystical blue light, Dojin stood tall and defiant. Standing amidst the massive source of pure energy, ready for a spectacular transformation to reclaim his ultimate power, Dojin faced the World Tree. He closed his eyes and began to regulate his breathing. Streams of pure blue spirit energy from the deity tree gently enveloped his bare, muscular body as Dojin slowly inhaled and exhaled deeply. He focused his spirits to absorb this precious source of mana. 1 day, 2 days, then 3 days passed. Dojin sat cross-legged in silence inside the hollow of the deity tree. He even forgot to eat or drink, completely immersed in regulating his breathing for 10 consecutive days. Under the peaceful moonlight, just as he was concentrating intensely, strange cries suddenly broke the silence. Dojin's eyes snapped open, filled with vigilance. Appearing before him were the fire fiends. Looking at the deformed creatures with purple flames burning fiercely on their heads, screaming and rampaging, Dojin's expression darkened. I instantly recognized these as the monsters that had incinerated the World Tree in the past, leading to the destruction of his old world. Seeing the pack of fire fiends charging at him, roaring, Dojin clicked his tongue and thought to himself, if only I had a water element sword, that would be great. But he quickly dismissed the thought. The corner of his mouth lifted in arrogance. Doesn't matter. Dojin channeled force into his hands, his brilliant blue spirit energy flaring violently, ready to crush the monsters with his bare hands. I'll crush them all, he resolved. His brilliant blue spirit energy flared violently. It enveloped his muscular body. Before the monsters could react, Dojin unleashed a massive burst of spirit energy. The terrible pressure from the strike made the fire fiend roar in agonizing pain. Dojin's eyes burned with killing intent. He stood tall, facing the pack of monsters that were starting to tremble and back away from his overwhelming aura. The spirit energy that had accumulated was now released as a shockwave. It created a terrifying explosion that swallowed everything around him. Exhaling in relief, Whew, Dojin whispered to himself. It's been a long time since I've unleashed this much spirit energy all at once. But the fire fiends were still roaring and charging madly. Without a moment's hesitation, Dojin unleashed sharp blades of air that tore through space, directly wiping out the monsters blocking his path. After the dust and smoke gradually cleared, Dojin walked leisurely. He strode under the mystical blue light of the forest. He smiled to himself. Safety of the world tree confirmed. Now, as for the spirit energy in my own body, Dojun's amber eyes flashed with a wicked glint. He smirked confidently. Let's check it out for real. Dojin strolled over to confront the pack of fire fiends waiting for him. One monster opened its jaw, filled with sharp purple flaming fangs, and screeched as it lunged straight at him. But Dojin moved with lightning speed, closing the distance, grabbing the creature's jaw with his bare hand and slamming it hard into the ground, instantly crushing its skull. Amidst the creature's helpless roaring, the power from his blow released an intense blast of blue spirit energy that tore the fire fiend's body apart. In a split second, its corpse turned to ash. It left behind a brilliant red crystal sparkling on the ground. Looking at the red crystal, Dojin muttered, confirmed. The corner of his mouth curved into a wicked smile. If I wipe you all out, I'll get some eternal embers, right? He calculated. I remember the drop rate for those was pretty high. Let's see how many I can get from you lot. With that, Dojin dived into the pack of fire fiends, using his bare hands to grab their necks and tear them apart without a second of hesitation. Sharp, clashing sounds rang out continuously as Dojin threw thunderous punches and kicks. Clearing out the pack of monsters, his overwhelming power quickly swept the entire area around the great world tree, leaving only the silent, mystical blue light of the forest behind. Dojun stood leisurely on the ground, taking a breather. Beside the red crystals, a tiny seed glowing with a warm golden light suddenly appeared. He realized right away. It was the eternal ember. Dojun reached down, firmly picking up his precious prize. Watching the flame dance in his palm, he whispered to himself, "The eternal ember, huh?" A sly smile curled at the corners of his mouth, so he'd managed to get his hands on it again. A surge of brilliant golden spirit power erupted, crackling playfully across his fingertips. Looking at the swirling, warm, glowing flame, Dojun calculated, it would be great to absorb even more spirit power from the world tree. But with my current physical state, there's no way to absorb any more. He quickly realized the only way now was to absorb this ember directly, and then transform all of his internal spirit power into the fire attribute. With a moment of hesitation, Dojun forced the blazing fire into his chest, letting the massive heat vibrate and merge into his body. Dojun let out a hot breath, feeling the new energy surging through his veins. He mused silently about his past life, back when he was a heroic, legendary knight. Back then, I wouldn't have even bothered looking at this ember. Yet here and now, it was taking him 10 minutes just to absorb a single ember. Looking at the brilliant red crystals, Dojun hardened his resolve. He would absorb as many as possible, amidst the quiet forest. Glowing with a mystical blue light, Dojun stood tall and alone, preparing to continue the hunt to gather more resources to restore his ultimate strength. While Seo Dogun was busy training deep in the forest, he was completely unaware of the turmoil unfolding in the real world outside. Back in the city, the atmosphere was chaotic. A massive spatial rift, emitting a dark red and black aura, hung in the sky, drawing the attention of curious crowds. Along with the media, constantly taking photos and filming, the police force had also arrived quickly to cordon off the danger zone. Standing in the crowd, Agent Bang Seong-gu gritted his teeth in anger. He spat out, "Damn it." Folding his arms in frustration, he snapped at his colleague. "What the hell is this? All because of one lunatic?" Seeing this, Agent Kim Hyun-gu stood by, casually checking his watch and calmly explained he was just trying to save his sister. But Bang Seong-gu immediately brushed it off. "That's just what he claims." He continued with contempt. He probably heard rumors about how easy it is to awaken in a rift, so he just charged in without thinking about anyone else. If he wants to die, he should just die alone. Why create such a mess? Still fuming, Bang Seong-gu turned to his superior and asked, "What did the association head say?" Kim Hyun-gu replied calmly, "He just said to follow the guidelines and wait for the next wave." Hearing that, Seong-gu was even more confused. But why? Yungu slowly explained that dangerous rifts were simultaneously appearing in major countries like the United States, China, the United Kingdom, Turkey, and Switzerland, keeping the association head extremely busy dealing with it all. Even though this was the first time a global-scale incident like this had occurred, countries had quickly gained control from the initial stages. But that explanation only made Bong Seong-gu angrier. He rolled his eyes and roared in fury, and we're the ones left to pay the price because of some useless piece of trash. His face twisted with rage. He clenched his trembling fists and firmly declared, "The moment that guy shows his face, I'm going to beat him to a pulp." Behind them, the red-black spatial rift still hovered menacingly. Above Dujun's house, it pulsated violently. 28 days had passed since the new rift appeared, and the Hero Association was constantly issuing warnings about a Tier 1 monster wave about to break out. The news reports broadcasted incessantly, in the event that the civilian who entered the rift first does not return within the next 2 days. A remote control clicked, cutting the TV screen to black. Cutting off the news report, the middle-aged man took a sip of tea and asked, "Oh, you said the person's name was Seo Do-jun, right?" That was Hwang Chang-seop, CEO of a loan shark company. Kim Eon-gu, his right-hand man, immediately bowed his head in confirmation. "Yes, sir. I heard from my subordinates. It is definitely Seo Do-jun." Hwang Chang-seop tapped his finger on the table, curiously asking, "Do you think that bastard has any chance of surviving and coming back?" Eon-kun adjusted his glasses and confidently assessed, "If he's just a civilian, there's no point in discussing his chances. The survival rate isn't even 1% actually, it's not even 0.1%. A civilian, you say?" Hearing the answer, Hwang Chang-seop suddenly wore a sinister smile. How ridiculous. Those ignorant fools at the Hero Association are totally mistaken because they don't have the full information. He remembered his battered henchman from earlier. Then he continued, "What if he's actually an awakened?" Eonka hesitated as he analyzed. If he is awakened, the survival rate depends on his hero rank. This is really hard to judge. Hwang Chang-seop leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Fighting well and surviving in a rift are two completely different things. The eyes behind his sunglasses narrowed calculatively as he asked Eon-gu, "That bastard Seo Do-jun has 2 relatives, right? We need to look after them." Eon-gu asked curiously, "Do you have a plan?" Thinking of Do-jun's frail grandmother and his little sister, Hwang Chang-seop put on a cruel smile. "For now, just keep them safe. If that kid dies in the rift, we'll sell his relatives' organs to collect the debt. And if he's lucky enough to return, we'll claim we took care of them, then force him to take on a new debt." Beneath the brilliant blue light of the world tree, Do-jun murmured to himself, deep in thought, "How much time has passed now?" Looking at the golden-orange flame dancing and blazing on his fingertips, he told himself he had already absorbed hundreds of eternal embers. With a massive surge of energy now flowing through him, Do-jun could wield his fire spirit power whenever he pleased. And that wasn't all. His fire resistance had also skyrocketed to a whole new level. He confidently gauged that in terms of fire affinity alone, his current state was far superior to his prime, back when he was known as the Sword Saint in his past life. Standing silently by the massive world tree, Do-jun slowly placed his hand on its rugged bark. In the past, and even now, this mysterious bond had always remained. Do-jun whispered a sincere note of gratitude. "Thank you, world tree." He quickly gathered the glowing red mana stones into his mesh bag. As he prepared to step out of the dungeon rift, Do-jun glanced back at the world tree and muttered to himself, "We may never meet again, but if we do, and if you are ever in danger, then I will protect you at any cost." His spiritual energy flared intensely. Do-jun stood tall before the world tree, ready to return to the real world. Under the cold glow of the full moon over the quiet Mapo district, a burst of red-violet dark energy suddenly tore through the air. Do-jun landed gracefully and precisely. After stepping out of the rift's edge, with the heavy bag of mana stones slung over his shoulder, he quickly scanned his surroundings and assessed nothing within a 1-kilometer radius. Everyone had evacuated in preparation for the upcoming monster wave, but then Do-jun's eyes narrowed sharply as he sensed something unusual, a powerful presence nearby. He cast a cold, sharp gaze toward the dark stairwell ahead. Suddenly he froze as he heard footsteps approaching. Peering around the corner, Do-jun spotted 2 association agents, a gray-haired man and a brown-haired man, patrolling nearby. Judging by their uniforms, Do-jun recognized them as members of the Gate Control Center. If I get caught, it'll just be a headache, he thought. Time for a diversion. Dojin channeled blazing fire energy into his palm and decisively flicked his wrist, launching a fireball into the air. The golden-orange streak of fire cut through the night. It slammed directly into a nearby pawnshop sign. It detonated with a deafening blast. The explosion startled the two patrolling agents. The brown-haired agent shouted in panic, "What was that?" What was that sound? The gray-haired agent beside him immediately yelled, "Fire! There's a fire!" The flames spread rapidly, engulfing a corner of the street in a sea of golden light. Taking advantage of the chaos as the agents and locals rushed toward the blaze to put it out, Dojin calmly shouldered his bag of mana stones and strode away in the opposite direction. Walking calmly through the shadows with the flames flickering behind him, Dojun evaluated his fire magic. The fire's properties and my target accuracy are both excellent. He looked at his hands, feeling the lingering warmth of the flames, and thought of an old friend from his past. You'd be impressed by this fire, wouldn't you? You'd be so happy. After all, you were the strongest fire mage on the continent. In Dojin's mind, the heroic image of his past life comrade, alongside the castle knight, flickered into view. At that same moment, back at the fire, the gray-haired agent suddenly froze in shock. He quickly turned to his partner. "Wait a second." The brown-haired agent turned back, looking confused. The gray-haired agent pointed at the night sky and said in bewilderment, "This rift, it's weird." The brown-haired agent asked, "What do you mean?" Before their eyes, the rift, a red and black distortion, was suddenly shrinking and vibrating violently. Realizing something was wrong, they both sprinted back toward Dojin's building area. The brown-haired agent shouted breathlessly, "What's happening?" "The rift." The brown-haired agent stood frozen in disbelief at what he saw. The red-black aura dissolved into nothingness, and the massive rift that had threatened the entire city was vanishing, leaving not a single trace behind. Meanwhile, under the bright full moon, Dojun walked casually in his slippers, shuffling up the steps to return home. He glanced back over his shoulder, his amber eyes glowing with a cold, sharp light. The end of a very profitable hunt. An urgent news bulletin suddenly aired on a large screen. In the heart of Seoul, a shocking announcement. The dangerous rift that had appeared in Mappo had officially vanished early this morning. The event occurred exactly 29 days after a citizen named Seojin entered the area. The sudden disappearance of the rift left the Hero Association completely stunned. As they had previously predicted, a catastrophic monster wave was imminent. The association announced that they would immediately launch a comprehensive investigation to clarify the true cause behind this mysterious phenomenon. Meanwhile, the media also reported on a sudden fire that broke out at a local scrapyard near the rift on a busy street. People began gathering, buzzing, with gossip about the fate of the young man who had entered the rift. One jerk spoke up cruelly, "That guy named Seo whatever, he's probably dead after going into that rift. Serves him right. He should have known to stay away from rifts when they appeared." Hearing this, a passerby tried to intervene. "A life has been lost. You don't need to speak like that." But the other guy immediately brushed it off harshly. "Don't be so naive. If that rift hadn't closed, Seoul would be a battlefield right now." Silently walking past the noisy crowd, Seojin pulled his hood down to avoid attention. Deep down, he felt a wave of melancholy. If it has truly closed, does that mean I'll never see the world tree again? He sighed, muttering to himself, "It's a shame, but perhaps it's for the best." Dojin looked up at the sun-drenched blue sky and reminded himself that there were still things he needed to protect. He decided to head back to permanently resolve the biggest threat to his family. His destination, the Dongpo HCS Capitol building, located just above the Pado restaurant. Standing silently in front of the dark entrance, Dojun narrowed his eyes as he watched two of the boss's lackeys smoking by the stairwell. As they led the way to the basement, they had no idea death was already breathing down their necks. Still puffing on cigarettes and laughing triumphantly, the lackey in the orange shirt sneered, "That bastard's dead. And now that old hag and the brat are finished too." A cohort in a white shirt chimed in, obviously. "The boss isn't someone to mess with. He'll make 10 times what they're worth." The guy in the orange shirt continued to spew his filth. "The old lady is whatever, but that brat might actually be pretty when she grows up. I bet the boss has already thought of a few ways to use her." But their vile chatter was suddenly cut short by a cold voice echoing from the shadows. Seo Dogun stepped out from the darkness. his eyes glowing a piercing gold beneath his hood. Looking at the two lackeys standing guard, he asked coldly, "Where's your boss?" At the same time, in front of the Yeondongpo HCS Capitol building, a luxury car screeched to a halt at the curb. Out stepped the crime boss, Hwang Jong-sob, followed by Secretary Kim. Thinking the thorn in his side, Seo Do-jun, had finally vanished into the rift. The debt collector was in high spirits, humming a tune as he walked. Hwang Jong-sob laughed loudly, full of himself. "Ha ha ha, that bastard is dead. Finally, I can get a good night's sleep." Adjusting his hair and sunglasses, he turned to his subordinate, Kim. "What's on the schedule for today?" Secretary Kim quickly opened his notebook and reported, "You have a lunch meeting with CEO Beck. There's nothing on the calendar for this afternoon." Hearing this, Jong-sob gave his orders. "Oh, really? Then get in touch with Ms. Kang and tell her I'll be dropping by tonight. And tell her to get those new girls all dressed up for me." After receiving a nod from Secretary Kim, the two walked up the stairs toward their office. But just as they reached the office door, a terrifying sound erupted, and the door was kicked wide open with tremendous force. Before he could even process what was happening, the guard was sent flying. He soared past Hwang Jong-sob and crashed onto the stairs in agony. Witnessing such sudden violence, the boss and Secretary Kim froze completely. Cold sweat poured down their faces like rain. Stepping into the room, now filled with wreckage, Hwang Jong-sob was even more horrified to see his tough thugs already beaten to a pulp. They were trembling as they knelt on the ground. Standing tall in the center of the room was Seo Do-jun, his golden eyes glowing with murderous intent under his hood. Do-jun spoke coldly. He fixed a terrifying gaze on the boss and commanded, "Crawl over here like a dog." The suffocating pressure and the slow, rhythmic sound of Do-jun's approaching footsteps left Hwang Jong-sob trembling violently, his face drained of every drop of blood. Do-gun lounged in the chairman's chair, then suddenly propped his feet up on the desk with a loud, jarring thud. He looked down coldly at the trembling boss and snarled, "Didn't you hear what I said?" The suffocating pressure made Hwang Jong-sob unable to resist. He could only crawl forward on the floor in utter humiliation. As he reached Do-jun's feet, Do-jun looked down at the man groveling before him and ordered nonchalantly, "Bark. A piece of trash like you doesn't deserve to be treated like a human. Bark like a dog." The humiliating command shattered Hwang Jong-sob's resolve, and he collapsed in sheer terror. He whimpered, "Woof." Do-jun's chair shifted slightly, making a small noise. Panic surged through the boss, and he hurriedly opened his mouth, straining his neck to bark repeatedly, "Woof! Woof! Woof! Woof!" The boss's pathetic surrender rippled through his lackeys. They, too, knelt and started barking along, "Woof! Woof! Woof!" Do-jun sat back in the chair and ordered coldly, "Bark louder." The entire Yeondongpo HCS office was filled with the degrading sound of barking thugs. Do-gun watched the boss kowtowing at his feet, deep in thought. "In front of me, you act submissive as if you'd spill your guts, but you're ready to stab me in the back the moment you get the chance, no matter how small the chance is." He narrowed his glowing, murderous eyes and spoke coldly, "Hwang Jong-sob, did you think I'd never dealt with filthy sewer rats like you before?" Fear of impending death caused Hwang Jong-sob to bang his head against the floor repeatedly, weeping and begging, "Please have mercy, I'll be as loyal as a dog." But in response to that pathetic plea, Do-gun simply said, "Shut your mouth," and delivered a thunderous kick straight to the boss's face. The sheer power of the blow sent Hwang Jong-sob's body flying backward. Do-jun glanced at the bespectacled secretary trembling nearby and ordered nonchalantly, "You, the one with the glasses. From now on, you're the boss. Stop serving scum like this." The sudden offer caught Secretary Kim by surprise. Do-jun propped his feet up again and continued, "Climbing up to a higher position isn't a problem, right? I'm giving you permission. Do it." The secretary swallowed hard, his nerves frayed. He quickly bowed his head and stammered in protest, "But our boss has wide-reaching connections. If I suddenly take his place, people will think it's suspicious." He broke into a cold sweat, desperately pleading for his leader, "Please, just spare our boss, just this once." Hearing that, Do-gun glanced at him with an emotionless expression and replied with disdain, "Why are you being so dense? Put him in a drum and toss him into the sea or crush him in the scrap compactor. Isn't that what you guys specialize in?" He continued his cold threat, "If you really don't want to do it, I'll just throw him into the rift as food for the monsters." At the mention of being fed to monsters, he frantically knelt and slammed his head against the floor, sobbing and begging, "Please, just spare my life! Just spare my life. I'll serve you like a beast of burden for the rest of my days. I swear it, I'm begging you." Looking down at the wretch, cowering at his feet, Dojun fell into deep thought, wondering if he should just finish off this Huang Trang sap right here. It would save so much trouble down the road. But he let out a soft sigh, thinking to himself, "Damn, have I really gone soft?" Shaking off the killing intent, Dojun pulled his foot back and said coldly, "Fine." He slowly reached out his hand, and seeing the lifeline offered, Huang Trang Sap wept with relief, frantically reaching out his trembling hands to take it. Bowing repeatedly in gratitude, he whimpered, "I was wrong all this time." Huang Trang Sap rushed to bow and swear his loyalty. "From now on, I will serve you." But before he could finish, he suddenly froze in shock. Huh? A searing golden flame suddenly erupted, burning fiercely on his arm, and a heart-wrenching scream of pain echoed throughout the office. Dojun watched the fire reflect in his eyes with cold indifference. He spoke emotionlessly. "This is your last chance." Dojun sharply pulled his hand back, leaving the man to collapse to the ground, Huang Trang Sap struggling to clutch his charred arm. Dugun turned away nonchalantly and strode out. Glancing back over his shoulder, Dojun's amber eyes glowed with fierce killing intent from beneath his hood, and he delivered a stern ultimatum. "From now on, if even a single scratch appears on my family, you're all dead. You will protect them 24 hours a day until your very last breath." The door slammed, echoing through the entire building. As Dojun stepped out, according to official reports from the government, the Hero Association, and all media outlets, Dojun's existence had completely vanished along with the rift. The magic rift. Everyone assumed he had perished in that horrific disaster. Yet, just as public opinion was in an uproar, Dojun was calmly sitting in a fast food restaurant with his little sister, Uni Ion, enjoying some delicious burgers. Looking at his phone screen showing reports of his own death, Dojun thought to himself that letting everyone believe he was dead was actually a good thing. It would help him avoid countless, unnecessary troubles in the future. Plus, with the forced support of that creditor Huang Trang Sap, a new, spacious house would soon be ready, so he could take his time moving. Seeing his little sister Uni Ion eating happily, Dojun smiled faintly, and she cheered excitedly, Hey, moving houses is so much fun. I'll finally get to go to kindergarten like the other kids. I'll be starting school next year too," she said, but her expression suddenly dimmed with sadness. Noticing his sister's change in mood, Dojun asked, "What's wrong? Don't you want to go to kindergarten?" She bowed her head, answering in a small, miserable voice, "Yes, I do, but they always tease me, calling me a kid with no mom or dad." Her innocent words made Dojun's eyes darken with cold fury. He looked at her gently and firmly said, "It's all right. You don't have to go to kindergarten. You don't need to see those nasty kids ever again. Next year, you'll just go straight to grade school." Hearing her brother say that, Uni Ion looked up with joy, asking to confirm, "Really? I don't have to go to kindergarten?" Dogun gave a warm smile. "Yeah, no more." Watching his little sister happily eating again, a thought crossed Dojun's mind. Should he enroll her in a prestigious private school, so that no one would ever dare look down on her again? Even so, looking at the Kin Motel where his grandmother and sister had to stay the night, Dojun sighed in self-reproach. Leaving a grandmother and a child to live in such a place only fueled his determination to quickly finish building a truly safe home for his family. The previous evening, in the hallway of the Kin Motel, Dogun had asked Secretary Kim coldly, "Are you stupid or something?" The bespectacled secretary broke into a cold sweat and fumbled with his explanation. "This motel is managed by our company, so it's very safe." Ignoring the excuse, Dojun brushed him off. "Forget it." He then pushed the door open and entered. Inside, his grandmother and Uni Ion were sitting on the bed and, startled, turned around. Seeing the familiar figure, little Uni Ion shouted with joy, "Brother!" The two of them rushed over to hug him. "Brother!" His grandmother grabbed Dojun's hand, eyes shimmering with tears of emotion. "Dojun, you really survived and came back." "Dogun!" Little Uni Ion also hugged her brother tightly, sobbing, "Brother!" Seeing his two loved ones sobbing with joy, Dojun's eyes softened. He offered a relieved, warm smile and spoke in a gentle voice to reassure them, "Yeah, I'm home." Back at the fast food restaurant, Uni Ion looked up with her big round eyes and asked, Dojun curiously, "Are you a hero too?" Do-gun rested his chin on his hand, looking at his sister, and asked back, "Why do you ask? Do you like me being a hero?" She lowered her head, took a bite of her burger, and whispered, "No, I wish you weren't a hero." Her answer surprised Do-jun. "Why?" Uni-ion explained sadly, "Because heroes have to fight scary monsters and sometimes they die. I just want you to live with me and Grandma for a very, very long time." Seeing his younger sister's sorrowful expression, Do-jun remained silent. As he bowed his head slightly under his hood, the brutal memories of his past life came flooding back. In that harsh world of the past, where the sky cracked open and volcanoes erupted violently, there were still resilient souls fighting and surviving until the very last second. Back then, he was a formidable blonde-haired rank 1 warrior who had endured a long life-and-death struggle against grotesque monsters, only to lose so many precious things in the end. But now, those precious things he thought were long forgotten have found their way back to Do-jun right here. At a simple family dinner with his grandmother and sister, Do-jun quietly thought to himself that he could live a happy life and silently protect this small, precious bit of happiness. The sound of a helicopter engine thundered over the bustling sky of Seoul. At the skyscraper headquarters of the Korean Hero Association, the founder and director of the World Hero Federation, Na Tae-gwang stood deep in thought by the large window. He sternly questioned his subordinate, "Did you guys really find nothing?" The secretary bowed respectfully, looking flustered as she explained, "Yes, sir. We haven't been able to determine anything about this situation as of now. I am terribly sorry." Na Tae-gwang turned away with a heavy heart, clicking his tongue in annoyance. "Indeed. That means the rift that suddenly disappeared could reappear at any moment." The secretary added anxiously, "That's right. As variables increase, the danger grows. If a wave of monsters were to descend..." But Na Tae-gwang immediately glared at her and cut her off sternly. "Watch your tongue. Considering the safety of the citizens, this is a fortunate outcome." Reminded, the secretary hurried to bow. "Ah, yes, I'm sorry for my slip of the tongue." As one of the 100 most respected heroes in the world, Na Tae-gwang's influence was incredibly immense. It was rumored that if he ran for president, he would win a record number of votes. He could even easily topple any domestic conglomerate if he wanted to. But the only concern of this powerful man was not fame or power, but simply the safety of the public against the threat of the rifts. Na Tae-gwang continued his orders, "Even if it takes more time, investigate it thoroughly again." The secretary quickly replied, "Understood, sir." And the residents living in that rift area have also agreed to sell their homes. Hearing this, Na Tae-gwang nodded with satisfaction. "Is that so? Well done. Offer them a price higher than the market rate so they don't lose out. I hope this can provide some small comfort to the families who lost loved ones." Afterward, Na Tae-gwang walked over to his desk, focusing on the computer screen displaying a world map with flashing red dots. He mused, They say the rifts this time appeared suddenly in many other countries. There's something very unusual about this. Haven't both the US and China entered a phase of control already?" The secretary looked serious as she reported, "The problem is in the UK. All the top heroes have been dispatched to other rifts." Just then, a notification sound for an urgent message blared on the computer screen. Looking at the bright red notification that had just appeared, Na Tae-gwang's face drained of color. His eyes widened in shock as he blurted out, "No way!" Seeing his unusual reaction, the secretary asked in a panic, "What happened, sir?" On the screen at that moment, it showed an emergency bulletin from the World Hero Federation with bright red text warning of an extremely dangerous monster wave. A new rift had just suddenly erupted in the UK. Do-gun leisurely walked through the bustling streets of the Gasan Hero Complex wearing his familiar gray hoodie with a heavy backpack slung over his shoulders. He headed straight for the magic stone shop he frequented. The doorbell chimed as Do-jun pushed the door open. The clerk was about to say something, but as soon as he recognized Do-jun's face, he immediately widened his eyes in horror and screamed, stumbling back while yelling for his boss. "Manager, that's him!" From the back, the manager with glasses, wearing a crisp white shirt, stepped out with a stern expression. He glanced at Do-jun and wondered to himself, "So it's this guy?" The manager decisively picked up a stack of documents and walked over to face Do-jun, acting arrogant. "Is it you? Are you the one who forced the magic stone trade when I wasn't here?" However, Do-jun remained completely indifferent. He tugged at his backpack strap and replied nonchalantly, "Perfect timing. I have a lot of magic stones to sell today, so I was hoping a senior person could help with the appraisal. With that, he tossed the heavy backpack onto the floor. It made a loud thud. Glancing at the black bag, the manager squinted with contempt, thinking to himself, looks like he brought another pile of rough, low-grade stones like last time. Without bothering to check inside, the manager coldly and flatly refused. I won't trade with you. Please leave. The rejection made Dojun raise an eyebrow and ask back. No trade? The manager scoffed and turned away. He explained with a haughty air, you probably don't understand, but we lose a lot of money just taking that small percentage. Get out. I will never trade with you again. Take your stuff and get out. But Dojun didn't care at all. He casually let go of his grip, and the black backpack dropped onto the floor with a heavy thud. Immediately, a stream of vibrant, glowing red magic stones spilled out from inside the bag, lighting up a corner of the room. The sudden sight made both the manager and the clerk's eyes widen. Stunned, the manager looked down, trembling, unable to believe his eyes. Wait, is that a hero-grade magic stone? Resting proudly among the pile of red magic stones was a unique star-shaped blue stone. He was shaken, asking himself, that stone rumored to be worth any price you name, why is it here? Seeing their reaction, Dojun coolly crossed his arms and said with indifference, suit yourself if you don't want to. These hero magic stones were truly priceless treasures. In the past, Karezaman, a notorious drug lord in Mexico, was synthesizing drugs from magic stones when he was suddenly struck by the power of one, awakening as a hero. Ever since then, these types of magic stones became essential items for awakening as a hero and increasing spirit power. Those stones became known as hero magic stones, and they weren't just a rare energy source. They were a top-tier luxury good. Seeing the treasure right in front of them, the manager and the employee were completely mesmerized, their eyes gleaming. Dojun calmly commanded, put them back in the bag unless you want to lose them. Hearing that, the two scrambled to their knees, frantically picking up each stone to put back into his backpack. The manager's attitude did a complete 180. Hai gave a servile, fake smile and said, Sir, would you like to sit and rest a while you wait? Meanwhile, the bruised employee just stood there timidly, clutching the small bag beside the pile of brilliant red magic stones, not daring to make a sound. Dojun calmly took a sip of water through a straw. The manager broke into a cold sweat and spoke up hesitantly. I'm sorry, sir, but is 5% commission a bit too much? In response to that hesitation, Dojun coldly turned his back. Then there's no deal. Seeing the customer about to walk away, the manager frantically waved his hands to explain, No, that's not what I meant. I was just a little curious. Why did you change the commission rate? Dojun turned his head slightly and replied indifferently, Because I felt like it. Hearing the blunt answer, the manager hurriedly knelt and banged his head on the floor in a pathetic apology. I am truly sorry. It was my carelessness. Dojun glared down at him and cut him off coldly. I'm sick of hearing apologies. Just tell me if you agree to this price or not. Watching this ruthless price gouging, the brown-haired employee standing by could only grumble to himself, Ugh, what an arrogant jerk, that's just too rude. Stifling his anger, the manager gritted his teeth and agreed, fine. He started babbling to try and save some profit. These magic stones are incredibly rare, so companies usually pay the market price without any commission fees. But you don't always come across hero magic stones, right? Right? At the end of the day, you'd have to pay a 10% commission anywhere else. But if you sell them all to us, we guarantee we'll keep doing business with you from now on. But Dojun cut him off, annoyed. Too long-winded. If you don't like it, forget it. I'm leaving. He turned around and walked away without hesitation. The manager panicked and chased after him, shouting pathetically, 9%! We're actually losing money at that rate. Dojun replied coldly, Then stop losing money. The manager frantically lowered the price again. 8%! If my boss finds out I gave this price, he'll kill me. Dojun responded indifferently. Then don't do anything that makes him want to kill you. The manager still didn't give up, yelling in desperation, 7%! We can't go any lower than that. Dojun calmly poured cold water on him. Who asked you to offer a price? The manager cried out and dropped to his rock-bottom offer. 6% at that level, there's no profit left at all. Dojun turned back and asked with a sneer, What kind of business are you running if you don't need profit? Seeing the manager completely exhausted, collapsing to his knees on the cold floor in surrender, Dojun smirked, his eyes glowing with a golden, oppressive light, and delivered the final verdict coldly. For old time's sake, I'll accept 1%. In his heart, the manager screamed in frustration. You're a straight-up bandit! He broke into a cold sweat, gritting his teeth at Dojun's ruthless price-fixing, but there was nothing he could do. Just then, Dojun flashed a meaningful smile and added one more thing. Just so you know, I have 7 more bags just like this. This shocking information caused the manager and the employee to freeze completely, their eyes bulging in shock as they mentally calculated the massive quantity of magic stones they were about to get. The manager's attitude shifted instantly, and he panicked, shouting at his employee, Hey, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and get the contract. The employee jumped, quickly stammered an acknowledgement, and scrambled away. Yes, boss! A moment later, the deal was quickly completed, and Dojun's phone chimed with a light beep, showing a transfer success notification from Stone. Man for a staggering 67 billion won. Looking at the soaring account balance, Dojun thought to himself, at this rate, even that 110 billion won mansion isn't out of reach anymore. However, his expression quickly became pensive again. Dojun told himself, the problem is, I can't find high-level magic stones just by clearing normal gates. He narrowed his eyes, calculating. The problem is, you can't get high-level magic stones just from gates. If only I could freely enter the rifts. In his mind, an image of a giant, pitch-black and purple spatial rift, a swirling, evil-looking rift, flashed back. Beep. An emergency alert sounded suddenly from Dojun's phone, shattering the silence. The manager, standing nearby, jumped and peered over curiously. What's that? Is that a dungeon break? Dojun remained silent, his eyes fixed on the bright red notification that had just popped up on his screen. He muttered to himself, In England? I thought on the screen it read, Emergency alert from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A wave has appeared in southern England. Travelers and business visitors are advised to change their schedules immediately. The safety of all Korean citizens is currently being confirmed by the embassy. After reading the bulletin, the corner of Dojun's mouth curled into a dark, cryptic smile. His amber eyes glinted sharply beneath his messy black hair as he stared at the government's disaster alert on his phone screen. Dojun clicked his tongue, thinking coldly, pathetic bunch of useless fools. As he strode down the busy street, he mused to himself, in the past, it didn't matter what country I was in. No matter what the Korean Hero Association said, I had to go and stop those rifts, but I don't have to live like that anymore. He made up his mind. I would shed all burdens to enjoy a peaceful life with his family. Suddenly, the mouth-watering aroma of sizzling grilled meat wafted from the grill, smelling absolutely divine. Right beside the grill, his grandmother and little Uni were watching the meat turn a perfect golden brown. Uni was so hungry she started drooling and shouted out, Wow! The 3 of them sat together around the warm barbecue table inside the restaurant, staring at the luxury menu featuring premium Manhwa beef. His grandmother, worried about the cost, looked at Dojun hesitantly and asked, Dojun, isn't 250,000 won for 100 grams of meat a bit too expensive? Dojun calmly took a sip of water and warmly reassured her. I've been making pretty good money lately, Grandma. Don't worry about it. Just eat as much as you want. Listening to her older brother, little Uni, eagerly used her chopsticks to pick up a hot piece of grilled meat and popped it into her mouth with joy. As she bit into the tender, juicy beef, Uni's eyes immediately sparkled. She chewed happily, exclaiming with delight. Seeing his sister eating so well and his grandmother happily grilling the meat, Dojun flashed a gentle smile. He waved the waitress over and generously ordered more. Bring us the grilled beef ribs, sirloin, tenderloin, and steaks. 4 servings of each, please. Looking at the table overflowing with premium beef, his grandmother asked with concern, Dojun, aren't you ordering too much? How are we supposed to finish all that? Dojun smiled, picked up some meat, and answered warmly, Let's just eat our fill today, Grandma. You should eat plenty, too. Looking at her thoughtful grandson, his grandmother was touched and could only exclaim, Oh my goodness! Little Uni excitedly picked up a large piece of meat and held it out for her. She cheered brightly. Grandma, this meat is super delicious. You have to try it. Touched by her granddaughter's affection, his grandmother smiled lovingly. My little Uni is so sweet. She took a small bite of the hot grilled meat, the delicious flavor making her feel completely satisfied. The 3 of them enjoyed a warm and happy meal together. But the peaceful atmosphere was suddenly broken by the sharp, rhythmic clicking of high heels hitting the floor. A girl with striking purple hair, wearing an elegant trench coat, walked slowly into the restaurant. She scanned the tables and headed straight toward Dojin. She stopped right behind him and asked, Are you? Are you Dojin? Dojin paused, then turned his head to look at her calmly. The girl continued, Could I have a word with you? Seeing that Dojin remained silent, she started to ask, Are you a hero? But Dojin immediately cut her off coldly. Can't you see I'm eating with my family? Dojin's amber eyes flashed with icy intensity as he bluntly dismissed her. If you have something to say, wait until I'm finished eating. His decisive attitude left the girl completely stunned. Even as a proud S-rank hero, she had no choice but to silently retreat to the corner of the room to wait. Her appearance immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding diners. They began to whisper in amazement, That's Hyun Ju-yeon, isn't it? The S-rank hero, the international star Hyun Ju-yeon? The person next to them confirmed, That's her. She deserves to be in the top 10 most beautiful heroes in the world. Watching the female hero patiently sitting with her arms crossed, they couldn't help but wonder, but who is she waiting for here? What kind of person makes Hyun Ju-yeon wait like that? Staring intently at Dojin, Hyun Ju-yeon's mind was filled with complex thoughts. 2 months ago, he was just some guy stepping into a gate for the first time. He had teleported and miraculously survived. That was considered the moment he awakened his powers. But after being sucked into the new rift in Mappo and reported dead, this guy was clearly alive and well, sitting there casually eating barbecue in front of her. With just one sharp glare and one indifferent sentence, Dojin had managed to make an S-rank hero, like her, feel under immense pressure. Ju-yeon wondered if someone who had awakened less than 2 months ago could really reach S-rank. Even the legendary oil tycoon, who had spent every resource collecting countless magic stones, had taken 5 full years after awakening to reach that level. There was no way Dojin could have reached S-rank that easily. He must possess some kind of extremely special ability. Just as she was deep in thought, the sound of a chair sliding back cut through her train of thought. The meal was over. Little Uni cheered happily, that was so delicious. Then, along with his grandmother and Dojun, they stood up to leave. Ju-yeon followed them silently. But as soon as they stepped out into the hallway, a foot suddenly stepped forward, blocking their path aggressively. The sudden appearance of the intruder startled his grandmother and Uni. Dojin's eyes instantly turned pitch black. With eyes flashing a cold, golden light toward his opponent, a man appeared before them with a cruel grin and jagged, savage teeth. He glared at Dojun and let out a mocking laugh. What the hell is this? So Dojin, did I see that right? How the hell did you crawl out of that gate? Catching sight of the figure who had just appeared from a distance, Hyun Ju-yeon was utterly stunned. Kong Cheo-liu, the scarred hunter, closed in, got right in Dojin's face, and smirked with contempt. I knew you were a piece of trash, but I didn't think you were a cockroach. Ju-yeon broke into a cold sweat, worriedly wondering why Kong Cheo-liu had shown up here at this moment. Facing the assassin looming over him and threatening his family, Dojun turned slightly, casually shoved his hands into his pockets, and looked toward Ju-yeon. Dojun spoke calmly, Hey you said you had something to talk to me about, didn't you? The sudden question caught Ju-yeon off guard. The presence of the S-rank heroine also made Kong Cheo-liu freeze in surprise. Huh? Hyun Ju-yeon? What is going on? Ignoring the assassin completely, Dojun continued his request to Ju-yeon. I'll listen to what you have to say, so do me a favor and help my family. Ju-yeon asked, bewildered. Help with what? Dojun glanced at his grandmother and younger sister behind him and instructed, help them get a taxi and get them home. But suddenly, Dojun's eyes glowed with a cold, murderous golden light, along with a chilling declaration. As for me, I have a debt to collect. Facing the suffocating, deadly pressure erupting from Dojun, Kong Cheo-liu remained arrogant. With a crazed, defiant smile, Hyun Ju-yeon quickly helped Dojun get his grandmother and younger sister, Inji, into a taxi to get them out of there. She gently reassured them, Don't worry, just get in the car. She then smiled and waved goodbye to the little girl. Goodbye, little cutie. The taxi quickly drove off and disappeared into the night. Ju-yeon sighed softly and turned back toward the restaurant. Inside at that moment, the atmosphere had become chaotic with the murmurs of the diners. Standing in the middle of the hall, Dojun remained incredibly calm after just having slapped that guy. Unable to contain his rage, Kong Cheo-liu bared his teeth and roared, You bastard! I'll! Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, a waitress rushed over to intervene. Sir, please, you can't do this here. But the assassin yelled maniacally, Damn it, get lost! He then shoved the waitress to the ground, causing her to cry out in pain. The hunter's strength sent tables, chairs, and dishes crashing to the floor. The surrounding diners screamed in terror and scrambled to escape outside. Left alone, the two faced each other amidst the wreckage as Kang Cheo-liu roared and lunged straight at Dojin. "Do you want to die? I'm asking you, do you? Want to die, you piece of trash?" But Dojin dodged with the speed of lightning. His eyes glowed with murderous intent, and he decisively threw a thunderous punch, straight at his opponent. Dojin's blow made Kang Cheo-liu clutch his face in pain, stumble backward, and whine miserably. Dojin coldly clenched his fist. He slowly called out his opponent's name, Kang Cheo-liu. Not giving him a second to breathe, he closed in like a flash. "You tricked me into going into that gate because you wanted me dead, didn't you?" With his eyes glowing with murderous intent, Dojin coldly declared, "We have a lot to talk about." Even while kneeling on the ground and gasping for breath, Kang Cheo-liu still tried to force a defiant, contemptuous smile. "Ha! What do I have to say to a piece of trash that even his own father threw away?" he sneered wickedly. "Or should we talk about the stepmother who wanted to kill you?" Facing the insult, Dojin remained incredibly composed. He calmly pulled out his phone, swiped the screen, and coldly pointed it at him. "Say that again." Dojin's challenge drove Cheo-liu insane with anger. He glared and hissed, "You damn dog!" Immediately, a fierce red fire erupted and enveloped the assassin's fist. Dojin asked calmly, "What was that?" Putting all his power into it, Cheo-liu threw a fiery, thunderous punch toward Dojin's face and screamed viciously, "Just die, so Dojin!" But facing the oncoming flaming punch, Dojin stood perfectly still. In a split second, he casually raised a hand, easily blocking Cheo-liu's 1,000-pound fiery punch right in front of him without taking any damage. The pressure from this collision created a terrifying shockwave, directly blasting the assassin backward. Struggling to land, Kang Cheo-liu stood frozen. Cold sweat poured down his face as he realized in horror, "My punch was deflected?" Immediately after deflecting Kang Cheo-liu's fiery punch, Dojin unleashed terrifying speed. He put all his strength into his hand and delivered a powerful punch straight to the assassin's face, taking him completely by surprise. Not giving his opponent a second to breathe, Dojin closed in like a ghost, pinned Cheo-liu to the floor, and rained down thunderous punches on his face. The sound of the blows echoed relentlessly throughout the restaurant. The waitress was panicked. She trembled as she pulled out her phone to call the police. "I have to call the police." "What's the number again?" 1111. But just before she could press the call button, a hand reached out and firmly turned off the screen. Hyun Ju-yeon suddenly appeared with a bright smile. She gently reassured her, "It's okay. Let me handle this." Recognizing the S-rank heroine, the waitress let out a sigh of relief. "Oh, Ms. Hyun Ju-yeon, thank you." Behind them, the sounds of brutal punching continued without stopping. Dojin was still pinning Kang Cheo-liu to the floor, raining down brutal blows. Witnessing the one-sided fight, Hyun Ju-yeon was incredibly stunned. She mentally gauged that Kang Cheo-liu was a B-rank hero, but he was being completely dominated like this. So the guy is above B-rank? Could he be past A-rank? Even an A-rank couldn't handle a B-rank this easily. "All right," Ju-yeon said, slowly stepping closer and calling out loudly, "Cheol, Dojin." The call made Dojin pause, turning his head slightly to look at her with cold, glowing, murderous eyes. Ju-yeon said sternly, "You're going to kill him." Facing her serious gaze, Dojin glanced down at the defeated man and then let go, leaving the unconscious body of Cheo-liu to slump to the floor. Ju-yeon looked at Dojin, filled with fear, and asked, "What about him? Do you know much about Kang Cheon-woo?" Dojin turned around nonchalantly and replied calmly, "I think I know enough about him already," then added with indifference, "Why? Is there a problem?" Dojin replied with the same nonchalance, "I know." He turned to look at her and asked indifferently, "Is that a problem?" Dojin's dismissive attitude caught Ju-yeon off guard. She thought to herself, he already knows. And yet he remained completely unfazed. He's being too reckless, not even caring about the consequences. Ju-yeon continued to explain so that Dojin would understand the gravity of the situation. The only reason Kang Cha-liu could commit all those crimes and get away with it was the protection of Kang Jong-pyo. So what you just did is extremely dangerous. I understand you have a grudge against him, but if you think Kang Jong-pyo will be sympathetic, you're wrong. Looking at the assassin lying unconscious on the ground, Dojin just smirked enigmatically. His fearless gaze made Ju-yeon uneasy, and she asked him, "So, you're not afraid of Kong Jong-pyo at all?" Avoiding the question, Do-jun turned to stare coldly into her eyes. "What's more interesting is, the fact that you know so much about me is starting to annoy me." Do-jun's eyes suddenly flared with an oppressive intensity as he stepped closer, causing Ju-ryeon to tense up and go on guard. A heavy, dark atmosphere enveloped them both, and right at that moment, the waitress in the back could only cry as she looked at the wreckage and the smoking computer, thinking bitterly, didn't she say she would handle this? Facing the wave of pressure from Do-jun, Hyun-ju-ryeon took a slight step back, but quickly regained her composure. She lowered her head to explain, trying to dispel the tension. "Sorry for dropping by without notice. My uncle asked me to take care of this." It turned out her uncle was the owner of the Magic Stone shop. Since Do-gun had just been there for a transaction, Ju-ryeon went straight to the point. "You sold magic stones at Gossen Stone, didn't you? Sell the magic stones to me instead of them." Do-jun raised an eyebrow and asked, "How much?" Ju-ryeon smiled confidently. "I will buy everything you have, Seo Do-jun." Hearing this, Do-jun smirked with a devious look and warned her nonchalantly, "I have a massive amount, you know." Seeing his attitude, Ju-ryeon tilted her chin up proudly and replied, "The assets of an S-rank hero might be beyond what you can imagine." On the ground, the assassin Kong Cha-liu could only twitch pathetically after being beaten half to death. Do-jun glanced at him, then turned back. Ju-ryeon calmly made her offer. "It's not that I don't want to sell, but I have a condition." Do-jun frowned slightly. "A condition?" He gave a knowing smile. "It's not a big deal. For someone like you, Hyun-ju-ryeon, this is nothing. Crash!" A harsh sound of shattering glass suddenly tore through the quiet of another luxurious office. Hong Hee-ju threw a vase to the floor in a fit of rage, screaming at the bald manager, "Lee, you said he was dead! You said he died in the new rift!" Before his mistress's fury, the manager could only sweat and bow tremblingly. "I apologize." Even the Hero Association confirmed he was dead, but Hee-ju cut him off, shouting, "Don't make excuses! How do you intend to handle this?" Knowing he couldn't soothe the madwoman's rage, the manager hurriedly stepped back to find an exit, stammering, "First, I need to report this." The news that Kong Cha-liu had been beaten to a pulp by Do-jun shocked Hong Hee-ju deeply. She couldn't believe that an assassin like Cha-liu could fail so easily. She began to fear that Do-jun might have found out something. If this reached the ears of her husband or father-in-law, things would become extremely complicated. But she reassured herself that as long as she managed it properly, everything would stay under control. What Hee-ju worried about most right now was that if the media found out, the group's stock price would immediately plummet. She ordered them to stop the news at all costs. She demanded that manager Lee keep a tight grip on the press, because if word got out, not only Group T but also Group VK would pull all advertisements and cease cooperation. She even ordered him to silence the police immediately. Manager Lee quickly reported that they had already handled the media and the police to keep things quiet. Receiving this answer, Hee-ju breathed a sigh of relief and praised him, but Manager Lee leaned in close to her ear and reminded her that this wasn't a permanent solution, because the point of interest now lay with someone else. The manager whispered that Kong Cha-liu's cousin was Kong Jong-pyo. Hearing this name, Hee-ju was surprised and asked if it was the same Kong Jong-pyo she knew. In reality, Kong Cha-liu's scum-like nature was already notorious in the hero world, and everyone knew Kong Jong-pyo spoiled his cousin immensely. In fact, Cha-liu was just a disposable pawn. I was used to handle the dirty work for Jong-pyo. Manager Lee analyzed that now that Cha-liu was being targeted by the police and the media, Jong-pyo's situation would definitely be affected. Therefore, he would surely make a move soon. Sensing this was a good opportunity, Hee-ju resolutely ordered them to schedule a meeting with Jong-pyo as soon as possible. In her office, Hong Hee-ju asked Manager Lee in a low voice, "And the CEO of the HCS fund, Hwang Jong-seop, has betrayed us, right?" Receiving a nod of confirmation from her subordinate that the creditor was secretly protecting Do-jun's loved ones, Hee-ju gritted her teeth in hatred. Her face turned dark and cruel as she coldly ordered, "Contact Prosecutor Park immediately. I has to pay the price for siding with that guy." While new plots were being hatched in the shadows, at the gate area, a new expedition was about to begin. Currently, there are a total of 37 rifts in Korea. 5 of those rifts are being converted into portals. The rest can only be searched by hero teams registered with the association, following a specific schedule. At the rift's strict security checkpoint, the agent in the black suit quickly checks and confirms Hero Hyunjoyeon's identity. With her ID verified, he wishes her a lucky expedition. After clearing the tight security, the hunting party walks through the rift's only entrance. Blending into the formation is Dojun, his hoodie pulled low, even though everyone knows she is S-rank Hero Hyunjoyeon. Security forces keep checking IDs and maintaining strict control over everything. Moving deep into the dark cavern is Dung Inju, an A-rank hero and leader of the Flower Butterfly Guild. Turning to tease Joyeon, she says, "You're the one who first suggested this hunt. You really are something else." Being teased by her senior, Joyeon sighs helplessly and replies, "Come on, sis, what else was I supposed to do? Just sit around and play?" She glances toward Dojun, who is walking silently behind them. In truth, this all stems from a prior agreement between her and Dojun. The young man had only one condition. Just one condition. "Let me come into the rift area with you, and I'll sell all the mana stones I get to you at market price." When Joyeon curiously asked why, Dojun just calmly replied that hunting in the rift area would earn him more money. His nonchalant answer left Joyeon stunned. She thinks to herself, he really came to a death trap like this rift just for that? He's absolutely lost his mind. But brushing the confusion aside, she tells herself, it's not like I care or anything. Even if my uncle didn't ask for them, I still need those hero-grade mana stones. The group continues walking deeper inside, where a dense, glowing forest gradually appears before their eyes the moment they step through the ancient stone passage. To enter the rift's dense forest, guild leader Dung Inju leans in close to Hyunjoyeon and asks quietly, "Hey, tell me the truth. Who is that guy?" The sudden question makes Joyeon blush in embarrassment. Just an acquaintance. But Inju immediately looks suspicious. Just an acquaintance? You expect me to believe that? She glances at Dojun walking slowly behind them and teases, "A potential boyfriend or something?" Joyeon quickly waves her hands, denying it. "It's not like that, sis. I owe him a favor, so I had to bring him along to pay it back." The answer leaves Inju completely shocked. An S-rank hero like Hyunjoyeon still owing someone a favor? Joyeon just gives an awkward response. Yeah, something like that. Just as they are talking, a strong gust of wind suddenly blows through, making the leaves rustle. Sensing a sudden killing intent, a male hunter in the team jumps in alarm. Dojun also glances back vigilantly from under his hood. From the sky, a giant black shadow suddenly dives down at terrifying speed. The whole team scatters into defensive positions. A piercing screech echoes through the forest as a giant bird-like monster with fiery red feathers and razor-sharp deadly claws appears before them. Seeing the grotesque creature attacking madly, Dung Inju shouts in shock, "A serpent chicken god!" Not letting the monster continue its rampage, Hyunjoyeon immediately yells orders. "Inju and Dojun, take a defensive stance." She quickly orders her team member Seung-ho to attack its feet, but the serpent chicken god flaps its wings and shoots up into the sky in a flash. It dives down aggressively, creating a powerful wind that sweeps across the ground. Before the team can even react, Dojun moves like a bolt of lightning to intercept it. His spontaneous action leaves Hyunjoyeon completely stunned. She yells in shock, "What? Dojun?" Both Seung-ho and Inju stand frozen, eyes wide, amazed at his speed. His logic. Facing the giant beast, Dojun glides effortlessly through the wind. Not letting the monster continue its rampage, he immediately lunges to attack the serpent chicken god. His eyes glow with a cold, golden light. Dojun focuses all his blazing fire mana into his fist and throws a lightning-fast punch straight at the monster's head. The punch, with terrifying force, triggers an explosion of dirt and rock, knocking the giant beast straight to the ground. Dojun lands gracefully. Watching the monster get knocked out in a single heartbeat, Hyunjoyeon and Seung-ho, standing behind, are completely floored. They gasp, "What the hell was that? Did he kill it in one hit?" But Dojun remains incredibly calm. He speaks up. Not yet. Having said that, he jumps high into the air and stomps his foot brutally down onto the creature's head. Now it's dead for real. The sickening sound of a skull crushing under Dojun's 1,000-pound stomp makes Joyeon and her teammates stare in horror at his ruthlessness. Seeing the monster finished off so quickly, the gray-haired hunter with glasses is completely bewildered. Turning to Hyunjoyeon, "Who on earth was that? That was insane." Joyeon breaks into a cold sweat, stammering, "He's just someone very strong." The dismissive answer makes the gray-haired hunter lose it, grabbing Joy-On by the shoulders and shaking her in frustration. Is that all you can say? Do you have any idea how many heroes could take down a serpent chicken with just one hit? Seeing her teammate overreact, Joy-On offers a forced smile. If it's just about knocking it out, even my little sister could do that. What are you talking about? Joy-On's nonchalance only annoys the gray-haired hunter more. These S-ranks are always putting on airs. She punches the male teammate next to her in the shoulder. You saw it too, what are you talking about? Especially since it was mid-air. It didn't even have time to dodge, and it was taken down in one strike. Looking toward the carcass of the giant serpent chicken god, Joy-On gulps nervously. She stares intently at Dojin's back as he walks ahead, curiosity piqued. Who is he? What is his identity? Biting her lip in determination, Joy-On turns to her senior. Sis, we need to change the plan. I'm going to the center area for a bit, and she walks off decisively. Leaving her two teammates staring in confusion, Joy-On slowly approaches Dojin as he crouches down, using his dagger to cut into the carcass of the monster. He cut into the key god to harvest the loot. The sound of the blade slicing through flesh was sharp and dry. Sensing someone approaching, Dojin glanced back slightly and said calmly, "My bad." He stood up, holding the glowing red mana stone he'd just extracted, and coldly declared to Joy-On, I have no intention of sharing anything with someone who didn't contribute. Stung by the cold shoulder, Joy-On turned away sharply and snapped, I wasn't planning on asking for a cut either. Meanwhile, Dojun nonchalantly tucked the precious mana stone into his backpack. Your abilities don't seem to be a good fit here. She glanced at Dojin and offered a provocative suggestion. Do you want to head in deeper? Hearing her proposal, the corner of Dojin's mouth curled into a devilish smirk. Sounds interesting. His gaze turned dangerous. Let's go. I can handle it all. Seeing Dojin agree, Joy-On turned and strode ahead to take the lead. I know this place well, so I'll show you the way. Joy-On took off at full speed. She tore through the air, creating a massive shockwave that blew the forest leaves away behind her. Dojin followed closely behind with ease, not breaking a sweat. His figure moved as fast as a ghost, quietly observing the back of the S-rank heroine ahead. The insane speed of the two created a loud sonic boom, leaving a long trail of dust in the middle of the forest. Witnessing the scene, the hunters with them could only gape in astonishment and blurt out, Gawa, if Joy-On is fast like a bullet, this guy is moving at the speed of light. They watched the trail of wind from afar. Si Ung-ho asked the guild leader hesitantly, Guild leader, aren't we going to follow them? Dung In-ju sighed slightly and retorted, Can you keep up? Getting a helpless answer from her subordinate. Of course not, I was just asking. In-ju firmly gave the order, All right, today we're just backup. We'll keep hunting in the outer zones like always. Standing by the carcass of the giant key god, Dung In-ju looked down, a deep sense of insecurity rising within her. She thought to herself, people on the outside praise A-rank heroes like me, but when standing before true S-rank heroes, we're nothing but useless small fry. In-ju's golden eyes trembled slightly as she thought about the overwhelming power of Joy-On, and especially that guy. The one who smashed a monster's head with one hand in the blink of an eye without breaking a sweat. Joy-On was still recklessly speeding through the dense forest. Finding it too quiet around her, she glanced back, wondering if she should slow down a bit so Dojin could catch up. But just as that thought crossed her mind, Dojun's deep, calm voice suddenly rang out right behind her. Can you hurry it up? The unexpected remark made the S-rank heroine jump in shock. Joy-On was sprinting when Dojin suddenly appeared right on her tail. His sudden arrival left the S-rank heroine, startled and bewildered. What the? She frantically wondered to herself, what the hell is going on? Did he actually catch up to me? She completely froze. As she had always been confident in being the second fastest in South Korea, watching Joy-On struggle to regain her balance, Dojun nonchalantly shouldered his pack and continued walking, coldly remarking, You're slower than I thought. You were running like you were trying to make sure I didn't catch up. Caught red-handed, Joy-On immediately turned bright red. Who said I didn't want you to catch up? Dojun ignored her sulking and shielded his eyes from the sun. Staring intensely at the towering Rocky Mountain, Joy-On stepped closer and asked curiously, Hey, what's up there? She followed his gaze and warned sternly, That's the territory of the Kenut boss monster. Hearing Dojin's question, Boss monster? Joy-On explained, That's right. Have you heard of the monster Cashin? It's a giant monster 20 meters tall, shaped like a wyvern. Don't even think about taking it down. You need at least 3 S-rank heroes to catch it. But Dojin only asked directly about what he cared about. Does this thing have a transcendent level mana stone, right? Jurion nodded, yes. A transcendent level mana stone, second only to the highest grade. She pressed on with concern, are you even listening to me? Dojin didn't answer. He strode straight toward the mountain. Jurion panicked and chased after him to stop him. You aren't seriously thinking of taking that monster on, are you? I didn't bring you here to pull off suicidal stunts like that. But before she could finish, Dojin launched himself forward with terrifying speed, creating a powerful shockwave. Watching his back disappear in an instant, Jurion was left completely stunned. She shouted in terror, good lord, what is he planning to do?